everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Bat Around, coming to you live from the new Press Box Studios here in Towson, Maryland. It is a beautiful, and I can't stress this enough, it is a beautiful Saturday morning here in the Baltimore, Towson, Maryland area. About 70 degrees outside, perfectly sunny skies. It is absolutely gorgeous outside. Is there an echo?
I will close that.
Today's show brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. You can come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel, the ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Welcome in to the Bat Around. And if you were under a rock yesterday, then maybe you don't know that DL Hall, the Orioles number 4 prospect, number 62, I believe it is, overall in the top
Sounds
100. Right. Is making his major league debut this afternoon at 4 o'clock against the Rays in Tropicana Field. He is getting the start after his last start at Norfolk, where he went 5 in the third innings, pitched 2 runs, 8 strikeouts, and 99 pitches thrown. So, Zach, this start for DL Hall, it's from what Rockabaco wrote this morning. So let's look at DL Hall. And okay. Rockabaco answered a bunch of questions in his mailbag yesterday. Sure. And they asked what the Orioles' plan was. This was before they announced that DL Hall was getting the call.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that was asked was, is DL Hall a starter or a reliever moving forward? And Rock said the Orioles 100% view DL Hall as a starter.
Yeah.
He is in their plans for the rotation for next season and beyond. He didn't say that much in it, but he said that the Orioles 100% view him as a starter. And then we find out he's getting the call yesterday, that he's getting the call for today, and he's going to be starting this game. But then Rock comes out this morning and says this is a spot start for DL Hall, and that the Orioles plan to use him as a multi-inning reliever the rest of the way. But he did throw 99 pitches in his last outing. So it's not like they're starting him as an opener today. They're starting him, and they want him to get as deep as he can.
Right, I think this is not so much, and what Rock is coming out and saying here is not so much a reflection of how the Orioles feel about DL Hall in totality, but I think it's how they feel about the rotation and what they have now. They probably feel that we don't want to change what's working. I mean, Spencer Watkins is a guy who's pitching to a 4.02 ERA right now, and you could go to a 6-man rotation. I know you floated that idea, and it's certainly a good one. But if they want to keep that 5-man rotation and they don't want to break what's working, I think this is probably the best move. And Stan has talked over and over that this guy could be a really, really good, high-leverage reliever because he throws so hard and the stuff is so good. And if the command, isn't really what we hope it is and it's not quite, as polished as we know DL Hall can be, then I think this is the perfect role for him. And, maybe he will be, a starter and number 2 or number 3 guy, 24 or 25. But right now, what he's doing in 2022, this is a really good role for him, I think.
Well, and the thing is, so they're not going to go to a 6-man rotation. They're giving him a spot start today, and I think that has a lot to do with there was a day off and there was a rain out.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But he's also coming up on an innings limit. He's never thrown. He's at 70 innings already this year.
Great point. Yeah,
not already, but even Rock said this. He's at 70 innings right now. His career high, I think, is like 91 and a third or 90 and 2/3, something like that. It's like right at 91 innings is his career high. They're not going to push him much beyond that, especially after only throwing 32 innings last year. So what Rock said in the article is that today's a spot start. They're going to use him as a multi-inning reliever the rest of the season, and their thought process is if he's major league ready, why waste the rest of the innings that he has, the rest of the limited innings that he has this season at AAA when he could be helping the big league club?
And I think you could make that argument for a few guys, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think that's only DL Hall. We've talked in length about Gunnar Henderson and Jordan Westburg, and you look at those two guys, is it the same argument? Can you make that one? That why waste, whatever they have left in AAA at this point? And I you know how I feel about Gunnar Henderson. That I don't think he's going to be coming up this year. But you can make that same argument if you're going to say that about DL Hall.
Well, right. And the other thing is, if you're going to call these guys up, it's presumably to help you make this playoff run.
Sure.
Right? if you're not on the 40-man roster by September 1st, you're not playoff eligible.
Right.
So if they're going to call up Stowers and either Gunnar Henderson or Jordan Westberg, and to me, it's one or the other. It's not both, right? They've got to add those guys to the 40-man roster before September 1st if they want them to help them if and when they make it to the playoffs. And right now, the Orioles, after their win last night over Tampa Bay, 10-3, currently hold sole possession of the third wild card spot, and they're just a game and a half back of Toronto for the second spot and 2 games back of Seattle for the first spot. And we're going to get to that here in a second. But you have to wonder what would be the corresponding roster move, right? Because we know that the corresponding roster move is coming today for DL Hall. He's already on the 40-man, so they don't need to take somebody off the 40-man to get him on. But they do need to get rid of a pitcher.
Wouldn't it be Head? That would be my assumption.
You would imagine it would be Head. If Hall's going to go into the bullpen, you would imagine it's going to be Head. I don't think it's going to be Vespi. But maybe it is Vespi.
It could be Vespi. I mean, Vespi's been one of the guys they've brought up and sent down quite a bit of times, and you get a lefty for a lefty in that situation.
Right.
So I think that could definitely be a consideration.
Yeah, and that remains to be seen. I think we can both agree it's probably going to be one of those two guys, either Lewis Head or Nick Vespi. But then if you want to call up Kyle Stowers, you're probably DFAing Brett Phillips. Right, because he after starting all 3 games in that series against Pittsburgh over last weekend, he had last night was his first appearance in a game. Right, and of course they love him in Tampa Bay. They're going to give him an opportunity to get in at bat or two. He went 0 for 2 with a strikeout and a pop out against a position player pitching last night, on the pop out.
Mike Elias was in the booth the other day. I'm not sure if you saw that game where Elias was talking. I think it was like the second or third inning, and he came in, and I believe it was Ben McDonald who asked him about Brett Phillips and why they, went out and acquired him. And usually Elias is a guy that I feel very confident when he talks, and I feel very confident that what he's saying is going to be correct and that he's coming from an approach that makes sense and has great logic to it. And what he said about Brett Phillips did not make me feel that. He basically didn't have a great answer for Ben and kind of said, well, we like his energy. And that was basically it. And that, to me, is not a good enough reason. We've talked about this in length in previous shows, but Brett Phillips is a guy who doesn't make a lot of contact. There's not too much power. He did hit 12 home runs last year. I'll give him that. But as a defensive outfielder, he's fantastic. You've got McKenna for that.
Right.
What are we doing here?
Right. And McKenna's, for all intents and purposes, having a nice season.
He is.
As a fourth outfielder, he's doing exactly what you would want a fourth outfielder to do. Brett Phillips, you're going to pinch run him, I guess. You're going to make him as a defensive replacement, which is kind of what McKenna's here for anyway. And if you put him in the lineup, you're getting little to nothing out of him.
Right. And maybe if Brett Phillips could play like every position, say he backed up at shortstop and he backed up at second base, and that was something he did, but he doesn't. So it's not really, there's just no value there.
Right. And then, but what, excuse me, I was convinced not convinced, but I don't even want to say the word confident. I wouldn't have been surprised last Monday if the Orioles had called up Kyle Stowers. I thought that might be something that would happen. They didn't.
Yeah.
Part of me thinks that they might do this on Monday. They might call him up on Monday. However, he struck out 7 times his last 2 games.
Yeah.
Now he's hitting .270. He's been a productive player. The strikeout rate is still there. It's still 4-1, right? So the question becomes, do you hang on to Brett Phillips for now because maybe you think that there's just too much swing and miss in Kyle Stowers' game? Colton Cowser, this dude doesn't belong in Bowie anymore.
No.
Right? Last night, 0 for 1, but 4 walks. He's hitting .347 at AA, just tearing the cover off the ball. Yeah. 5th overall draft pick last year. This is a guy who probably should be in AAA.
Yeah, I agree.
At this point. Or could you, I really don't think they're going to do this, but could you see them having him leapfrog Stowers and going straight to the majors from AA?
I predicted last year when they drafted Cowser, I said he could be in the majors very, very quickly. That's what I said, and I even said end of 2022 I don't think would be out of question because I think he was that polished of a player, and I think that's one of the big reasons they took him because, the guy makes a lot of contact. He's polished in basically every part of the game. Honestly, it's not that out there. It's not that crazy to say that.
If you look at him, and do me a favor, pull up Colton Cowser's numbers
sure.
if you could, because I have to imagine that his walk-to-strikeout ratio is far better than Kyle Stowers. Colton Cowser's a guy that the reason they drafted him is he makes contact, he hits the ball all over the field,
Right.
he walks and he doesn't strike out.
Well, his on-base percentage this year is .421.
Right.
So that's incredible. And 901 OPS throughout the two levels. In Bowie, he's actually been a lot better than he was at Aberdeen. The on-base percentage is .487.
Mm-hmm.
The OPS is 1100. He's walked so far at Bowie 27 times and struck out 35 times. So the ratio there still very, very, very good. I mean, it's not a huge difference.
Far better than Kyle Stowers. So what you would have to look at there is excuse me, is Kyle Stowers a better option at this point than Colton Cowser? Can Colton Cowser
probably not?
Colton Cowser is going to give you professional bats,
Mm-hmm.
right? When I was watching him in spring training, they had him face some major league pitchers at times, and he was not overmatched. He makes solid contact. I don't think they're going to do it, but I think it would be one of those savvy moves where nobody expects it, and then boom, Colton Cowser's in the major leagues, and he's helping his team make a playoff run down the stretch.
He could, and that's the thing about it. And we talked about Adley Rutschman and Taron Vavra, two guys that have incredible approaches, and Colton Cowser, to me, is right up there with those guys. He just puts together great at-bats, and you really want guys who put together professional at-bats, because you do have, unfortunately, a lot of free swingers on this team already. I mean, Rougned Odor is a free swinger. Jorge Mateo, even though he's been playing great lately, still a really free swinger. And there are a lot of other guys as well.
Ryan
Austin
Mountcastle,
Hayes, for sure.
Austin Hayes.
So to get a great guy like that who can really give you a good at-bat, and Kyle Stowers is really the opposite of that. Here's a question for you, though. Do you think Kyle Stowers is kind of at the peak of his development right now? Do you think there's much left he can develop in AAA? I think that's probably the biggest question for the O's.
He's only in his second full season of pro ball, right? And he missed 2020. This isn't a guy who's been in the minor leagues for 5-6 years and is hitting is a 4A player that hits 270 with 30 home runs at AAA. I mean, this is a second round draft pick, right? He's a second round draft pick in his second full season of pro ball. His walk rate has gone up from last year. His strikeout rate has gone down from last year, from 35% down to like 24.1%. Although that's probably raised a little bit the last two games with the 7 Ks. The batting average is up from last year. I think it is. No, last year he hit like 279.
8 points lower.
Yeah. This year he's hitting 270. The power's still there. He leads he leads all of AAA in extra base hits. No, I don't think he's at his peak.
Okay.
And I think that once you get to the big league level, I mean, you look at what Manny Machado did, right? This is a guy that was hitting as a 19/20-year-old at AA, was hitting 266. He gets called up to the majors and has a nice rookie season, and takes off from there, right? 52 doubles the next year, hitting close to 300. A lot of times these guys get to the big league level, and with big league coaching, they take that next step. So I don't think that we're at the peak for Kyle Stowers. Now, if he were to get to the major league level and it just looks like he's lost at the plate, maybe. But we have to see that. In the cup of coffee that he got in Toronto back in June or May, I think it was May.
Probably not really representative.
Not representative
Kyle Stowers.
of he did double and have an RBI before Adley Rutschman recorded his first RBI, despite Rutschman having been here for almost 2 weeks longer. So I don't know, man. It's going to be an interesting run. I do think you have more prospects coming to the major league level from the minors, and that brings me to Grayson Rodriguez. And I promise you, we're going to get to the game from last night. But this is all like just really big stuff that happened. Grayson Rodriguez throwing from 120 feet, and he threw off a mound the other day, and he said, "I know I'm getting into game action again this season, and that's all I could have asked for after the injury." Basically, I'm paraphrasing here, right? Does Grayson Rodriguez throw an inning for the Orioles this year?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
that would be my guess. I doubt it.
I was asked. So Ryan Blake and Ryan, our main fill-in here, he and I do a podcast for Utah Street Report called "Give That Fan a Podcast," and we've recorded 2 episodes. And he asked me on the most recent one if I think Grayson Rodriguez will pitch again this year. And at that time, and this was just 3 or 4 days ago, I said. He could, but I think they're going to shut him down.
That's still where I stand.
But now Mike Elias has even said he's going to get onto a game mound, right? Mike Elias said that. Grayson Rodriguez said that. So now I do think he pitches this year.
Okay.
It's just a matter of, does he do it for Norfolk or does he do it for the Orioles? And it brings you back to the rotation question, right? Because right now everybody in your rotation is pitching pretty well.
Right.
And even if Lyles wasn't pitching well, you're not taking him out of the rotation. Because you Jordan Lyles and you gave him $7 million to be.
You can't do that.
Right. So you're looking at Voth, who has a 3.21 ERA
Right.
since coming to the Orioles. You're looking at Spencer Watkins, whose ERA is well below 4 since coming off the injured list, and he's got a 4.02 ERA for the season. Bradish has gone 5 innings or more in all 3 of his starts off the injured list and looks a lot better and looks a lot more consistent in the strike zone since coming back, and the stuff is just too good to take him out.
Sure.
Dean Kramer, I think, might be a little susceptible because I think with Dean Kramer, if you get 5 innings of 2-run ball or less out of him, that's a win.
Yeah.
Because I expect him because he's always going to have that 1 inning.
He always does, and he always did through the minors. It's a thing for him.
He always has that 1 inning where he somehow manages to give up a crooked number. Now, when he was pitching against a team like the Pirates, he went out there and he shut them down because it's the freaking Pirates. Right? So Dean Kramer might be the guy who's most susceptible, or might be a guy who moves to a bullpen role. And at that point, maybe then you replace him with Grayson Rodriguez. But you also have Tyler Wells coming back. Tyler Wells traveled with the team, which usually means he's nearing a return to baseball activities.
Yeah.
And if he's going to come back and pitch for the Orioles again this year, which that would surprise me, because I when he had the injury, I'm like, he's done for the year. Because he was on an innings limit anyway.
Yeah.
Where does he fit in?
I don't think he pitches for the Orioles again this year. I would be surprised. I think it's going to take a lot, and I don't think they're going to rush a guy like that back necessarily, just because he's going to be a big part of that rotation next year. And they're really, this year they love what they're doing, right? They love this. They love that they're in position to compete right now. But next year, Mike Elias has said it's takeoff from here. You want a guy. Lift off, sure. To paraphrase, I'll say take off from here. Yeah. But if you have a guy as good as Tyler Wells has been, you want him fully healthy coming in next year and making sure that he is 100% ready to be at that top of the rotation.
But the thing is, if he and Grayson Rodriguez don't pitch again this year, they're on an innings limit again next year.
I guess that's true.
And
maybe you go 6-man rotation. You could.
They don't seem like they want to do that. Or are you talking about next year?
Next year, right?
Next year, and chances are. Lift off from here means they're going after a free agent pitcher. I would imagine that's what that means.
Right, and Voth and Watkins, and even Kramer, as you mentioned before, those guys are all, they're pitching well at the moment, but you wonder how long it's going to last. And you need guys, I think, a little more dependable than those 3 that you can really say are going to be 2023 starters for this team. I don't really look at any of those 3 and go, man, he's really going to be here. You know what I'm saying? I don't have confidence in any of them.
I look at the Orioles rotation right now, and I think that as it currently stands, they have a bunch of 4s and 5s.
They do.
They have a bunch of 4s and 5s, and Bradish has the highest ceiling of the guys that are currently on Saturday, August 13th, 2022, of the guys currently in the rotation. Bradish probably has the highest ceiling, maybe a number 3, number 2 or number 3 for them.
I mean, have Voth and Watkins been great stories? No doubt about it. Are they going to last, throughout entire 2023 and pitch as well as they have this year? Doubtful for me.
And do you want to take that risk when you have guys who are very clearly better than that?
Exactly. I don't think you do.
Yeah, it's.
And D.L. Hall, again, as we mentioned, is going to be in the rotation next year.
Right. The plan is for him to be a rotation piece moving forward. He's going to get back to starting. He'll make the start today. He'll be a multi-inning reliever. And you have to look at that, man. And it's, what? We're stealing a lot of thunder from Orioles banter. And we have a long Orioles banter today. So we'll save that. But, yeah, look, this is a great problem for the Orioles to have. You're a ball club that's 59-53. You're playing your best baseball in 5-6 years. Honestly, your best baseball in probably 6 years.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? And you have sole possession of the 3rd wild card spot, and you're not that far out of the 1st spot in the wild card. Not to mention the fact that the Yankees they're 9-15 in their last 24 games, and the Orioles have picked up 6 games in the standings on them. They're only 11.5 out, and we have seen. Look, if the Orioles win the American League East this year, it's like the miracle on ice.
It really would be.
It would legitimately be like the miracle on ice. And oh my God, I would just love to laugh at Buster Olney and Bob Nightingale. like the Orioles waving the white flag. Meanwhile, they have the best winning percentage in all of baseball.
I think they'd be bad for baseball at that point.
Yeah, right?
Buster Olney's bad for baseball at that point.
The Orioles have a 650 winning 650 ball since the All-Star break. The best winning percentage in all of baseball.
I think it's since May 19th. I want to say that's the date. They're on a 99 win pace, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely insane. If you look at their pace from July 3rd, you look at their pace from July 3rd, they're on like a 110 win pace. They've lost twice in August. It's August 13th. They've lost twice.
Yeah,
this month. It's what's happening here in Baltimore is insane, and that leads me to last night's game. The Orioles had to me, that was a bit of a demoralizing loss to Boston, right? You go in there for one game, and the Elias Sports Bureau counts that as a series. It's Boston's first series win and first series sweep against an AL East opponent this year, which is stupid. It was one game. The Orioles, they looked dead in the water in that game. They're down 3-0 in the sixth. They managed to squeak out 3 runs, and then they immediately give it back the next inning.
It didn't feel right, that game.
Yeah,
no.
it didn't feel like – it felt like early 2022 Orioles where it's like they're contending, but they're not quite there.
We talked about it, the first 2 months, that they'd lose by a lot of 1- and 2-run games. Yeah. And that's kind of how I felt that game was. Yeah. It wasn't their best played game.
It wasn't. And you figure, they had the rain out the day before, and then they had to fly there, and then they had a flight right after the game to go into Tampa Bay. Probably not your high-energy game that you're looking for. Mm-hmm. And then you're wondering, are they – it's only natural, right? Every loss, when your team is in contention and they're on the fringe of the playoffs, every loss is magnified. Every loss hurts worse than it would have otherwise, right? So then you're like, man, I hope this team isn't running out of steam. Not running out of steam.
No.
They go out against Tampa Bay, against Corey Kluber, who's giving them fits all year.
Yeah.
They put up a season-high 19 hits. They win the game 10-3. Jorge Mateo, 5 for 5, his first 4-hit and his first 5-hit game of his career. 2 RBIs last night. Caught stealing for the 3rd time this week, and it was almost a 4th time because the other day when he got a stolen base, it was initially rolling out and was overturned.
Yeah.
Ruth Neto-Dor, 4 for 5 with 2 RBIs. Cedric Mullins, 3 for 5, a home run, 2 RBIs. Austin Voth takes a no-hitter into the 6th inning, 5 1/3 innings pitched, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 5 Ks. His ERA is down to 3.21 in 13 games and 9 starts with the Orioles. How has Voth been able to find success with the Orioles after being so terrible in D.C.?
Well, you look at the curveball, and it's one of the better curveballs in baseball. It really has been. If you look at the numbers through Baseball Savant, it's really one of the top curveballs. It just has unbelievable break, and it's getting guys out by so many swing and misses right now, and I think that's been the big thing. I think the Orioles have kind of unlocked that curveball and made him, be able to throw it for strikes, but also for quality strikes, and I think that's been the biggest thing for Voth. But also, just being able to throw more quality strikes as a whole has been really important for him. Not really. I think when you came here and you saw in the first few games, maybe a few more pitches that weren't really too quality, a little bit down the middle, some things that I said, man, that's going to get crushed if a guy's swinging at that. Now it seems like he's hitting the black more often. The stuff has looked certainly better. I don't know what the Orioles are doing behind closed doors, but whatever they are, it's working. And clearly they're showing Voth, numbers that are helping him get better, and numbers that they're showing him what he's doing badly. It's incredible right now, it's a complete turnaround from what he was in Washington.
We talked about it. I talked about it with Ryan the other day. His fastball's in the spin rate is in the 97th percentile, and his curveball spin rate is in the 85th percentile.
The curveball's so good. It's so good.
And then you look at what he's you look at what he said, right? And what he said was the Orioles pitching coaches and their analytics department and their development team is so far and away ahead of the Nationals. It's not even close. So you look at that, and it makes you confident that the Orioles can take some of these guys who maybe this big league coaching staff, this big league pitching staff, can take DL Hall and help him find that consistency. You know what I mean? Because
it'd be huge.
It would absolutely be huge. That remains to be seen. Now, we're going to talk about Jorge Mateo a lot in the in Orioles banter. We're going to talk a lot more about DL Hall. We're going to talk about these prospects, about Grayson Rodriguez coming up. But look, last night was a huge win for the Orioles. They got DL Hall going today against Shane McClanahan at 4:00. This is going to be an interesting one to see. If DL Hall is on, he's unhittable. Yeah. And that Tampa Bay offense has been struggling a lot. They're missing a lot of their key players, a lot of guys on the injured list. This could be maybe something special for the Orioles today. It certainly is exciting. We're going to go ahead and get Stan the Fan on the line here for his weekly segment with us. I want to remind you that today's show is brought to you by your local Toyota dealer. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines. You can choose to perfect Tacoma to... That doesn't read right. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines. You can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. Rest of the show coming up, we have Stan here in just a few seconds. At 11 o'clock from BaltimoreBaseball.com, we're going to have Rich Dubroff. We're going to have an extended Orioles banter today because there's just so much to talk about. And then take to Rake. I was running away with it until last night. It ended pretty damn close. We'll see how that goes. But for now, we turn to Stan the Fan Charles. Good morning, Stan. How are you today?
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
We're doing really well, Stan. It is an exciting time to be an Orioles fan, enthusiast, beat writer, journalist, whatever you are. If you're around the Orioles, it's an exciting time to be in Baltimore. Orioles crushed Tampa Bay 10-3 last night, Stan. Pretty demoralizing loss the night before to Boston. It just seemed like a low-energy game. And then the Orioles come out and just beat the brakes off of Tampa Bay. What did you see from last night? What does it say to you about this team that they were able to come back the way they did last night?
Well, they've got a certain resilience that we wouldn't have thought they had going into the season. I don't let one loss get me down the way I would have in the past. So
sure.
They're having a mental ability as a team to sort of put that away and focus on today.
And Stan, you look at that game last night, and Austin Voth, just a revelation since coming over to the Orioles with that 3.21 ERA in his 13 games. He takes a no-no into the sixth inning. Mateo, 5 hits. Odor, 4 hits. Mullins, 3 hits, a home run. All of them had 2 RBIs. Rutschman, a home run, 2 RBIs yesterday. Was this one of the Orioles' more complete games that you've seen this year?
Yeah, I think that's a good observation, Paul. I think it was a complete team victory.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, I got to tell you, this Mateo, just the confidence in which he's playing all aspects of the game right now. It's just really fun to watch because we in Baltimore, I mean, we've had some terrific players. They pale in comparison to what his athletic ability is, this kid.
He's an electric baseball player. He's absolutely electric. And you mentioned him, Stan. 5 for 5 last night, his first 4-hit game and the first 5-hit game of his major league career. Doesn't matter that his 5th hit came off a position player pitching. We won't worry about that. He's slashing .333, .362, .621 with a .983 OPS since the All-Star break. Mike Elias has said he's playing so well. Mike Elias has said Mateo will be a part of this team for years to come. Is he becoming one of the best shortstops in the American League?
I blink my eyes and kind of waiting for it to end. I'm waiting for the shoe to fall, the other shoe to fall. But right now, you would not be wrong in saying that.
He's been a microcosm of this Orioles season. You're watching him play so well, and you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it's just not dropping. And I think that's a perfect way to describe Jorge Mateo. Certainly exciting, especially when he's batting ninth. To have that kind of production and that kind of a player hitting out of the 9-hole for you is certainly a coup for them.
And I like the fact that they're keeping him low in the batting order. Don't put any added pressure on that kid now. Just let him, because it ends up being like having 2 leadoff hitters, when he gets on base in front of Mullins. So now, good job with what they're doing with him.
I agree. Now, it's usually, if he gets on first base, it's usually a double, maybe even a triple. But he's been caught stealing 3 times this past week. And the other time that he was ruled safe, he was initially ruled out and it was overturned on review. Are you concerned at all? We say speed doesn't slump. He has one of the fastest sprint times in all of Major League Baseball. Have you seen anything that makes you think maybe he's just not getting big enough of a lead, maybe he's not getting good enough jumps? Have you seen something from him that
I think he's got a target on his back. I think the pitchers and the catchers they're aware of what an elite base stealer he is, and they're just I haven't really been able to say they throw over that much more, but they're much more careful with him. With leads, they slow down a little bit. They use the slide step, and they get the ball. They get the ball to the catcher, and the catcher is really been, the throws that he's been thrown out with are just been perfect throws.
Absolutely.
So I'm not concerned at all with that.
Stan, we look at the pitching and how good it's been this year and the step it's taken forward. And you have to think Jorge Mateo has been a part of that, and his defense and how many runs he's really saved. What has his defense kind of brought to the Orioles, and how much of an effect has his defense had on this pitching staff?
I think that's great observation, Zach. I was reading, I saw Jason Stark the other day tweeted an article written by a guy, and it's funny. I tweeted the guy and sort of said, "Hey, can you friend me on here? So I follow me on Twitter so I can email you, a direct message." And he said, "I think you can now anyway." And he didn't, friend me. And he's with MLB.com, and I cannot remember his name. And he was talking about 4 teams that have vastly improved their infield defense. One of them was the Phillies, one of them was the Orioles, and I can't even remember the other 2. And it was a terrific article. And they're just that defense has really helped the pitching. There's absolutely no question about it. And it's not just the infield defense. They always used to say in the old days that teams as good as they are up the middle. Well, since they've had Rutschman and Mateo playing at such a high level, and we know Mullins gets the ball, they're just very tough right now. They have terrific speed at most positions. They cover a lot of ground, and they've made it very, very tough on opposing hitters.
Yeah, and you look at that defense, and there's not really a weak spot at this point. You can maybe make the argument for Mountcastle over at first base, but I think he's played well enough over there, Stan. Now, my question regarding Mountcastle is, do you see – he's not the greatest defensive first baseman. The Orioles don't really have any other options after they've traded Trey Mancini. What is their plan moving forward? We've seen Anthony Santander taking ground balls at first base all year during warm-ups. We've seen DJ Stewart, since he got back to AAA, playing some first base. Do they have a plan for somebody that can fill in for Mountcastle over at first base? I don't know that Nevin's the answer for that.
I haven't really thought about it. I mean, yeah, you need somebody, to be able to go over there in case Mountcastle is either hit by a pitch or whatever. So they've got to have somebody on the roster that can go over there. And I think you probably mentioned the 2 guys. I just don't see them, sort of benching Ryan Mountcastle. So I don't really. Well, no, he's a young guy. He's a good. Yeah, no, he's a good athlete. I think he's made great. I think he's made great strides over there. I don't know I did read that Santander's been taking some balls, because you do have to have somebody else that can go over there.
Right, and I guess I don't think that they're going to. I think Mountcastle's going to be in this lineup every day for the next 5 to 10 years because of the power that he has and his quick bat speed. But if he's the weak link on defense, you would think that maybe that. I don't know. We'll see what they do in the offseason. We'll see if they bring anybody in. But I
wouldn't turn him into a weak link defensively, because he might be the weakest defender on the team. That doesn't mean he's a weak link.
I think he's played well overall this year. I think he's played well.
Yeah, he's played well. Yeah. I'm more concerned about Ryan Mountcastle getting back to being, a hitter that's feared by pitchers rather than being a guy that helps the pitchers.
Yeah, and you know what? Until last night, he had a pretty productive week going into that series against Tampa Bay. So I think he's on his way back. Now, somebody who's on his way to the Orioles stand. The big news coming out of Baltimore yesterday. DL Hall set to make his debut for the Orioles this afternoon, getting a spot start, as Rockabaco said this morning. He's the Orioles' number 4 overall prospect. He's, I believe, number 62 overall in the MLB Pipeline Top 100. Now, Stan, you've been saying for a while now that he could be an elite reliever, but as a starter, he's just another guy. Rock said in his blog yesterday.
I haven't said he's just another guy. I might have said that in one tweet or something.
You did say that in a tweet yesterday.
Okay, he's got electric stuff, but because of pitch count, I mean, if you read the numbers, I'm not really wrong.
Right.
He's pitched 77 and 2/3 innings in 20 starts. You know what that averages out to, Paul?
Less than 4.
3.8 innings pitched. Okay. Mm-hmm. So they're essentially bringing up one of their best prospects. And at this point in time, I'm not saying Chris Holt can't have an impact on him and the Orioles defense can't have an impact on him.
Sure.
But they're essentially making him a glorified opener, is what they're making him
Mm-hmm.
instead of a guy that could come in. And I'll just pulled up the 2014 Orioles. Andrew Miller pitched 20 innings that season in 23 games, gave up 8 hits, 3 runs, walked 4, struck out 34.
Mm-hmm.
And the Orioles won the American League. They won they got to the American League Championship Series.
Yeah.
That's what he can be. And instead, you're going to throw him out there 8 times, 9 times, and he's going to throw 3 innings. It just makes no sense to me at all.
Well, Stan, so in his last start on Sunday, he went 5 1/3 innings. He threw 99 pitches. I think that they have him starting today with the intent to go as deep as he can. But then Rake Baco alluded to it this morning that the Orioles' plan after today is to use him in relief as a multi-inning reliever. So
that's what he should be used as.
So with the plan that he's going to move back to a full-time starter next spring when they enter spring training. So
right,
until
they realize that that what I'm saying is correct. That's what he is. He's a potentially great relief pitcher that you're going to fart around with and turn him into something that he's not. He hasn't proven that he's a starting pitcher at any level.
Yeah, look, he at times he's masterful, but when he doesn't have it, it's not good. He's given up.
Zach, what do you think, Zach?
I want to see him get a chance to start because I think there is a chance, but I do see him probably as a long-term reliever. I think that's more where he'll end up based on the fact that most of the guys who end up in the bullpen are the good stuff, low command guys, and I just think that's what he'll end up being long-term.
And he's got a chance to be, and this is not me saying, hey, he's got a chance to be Joey Kriebel or Brian Baker. This is a guy who could be, what I'm comparing him to is Andrew Miller, Josh Hader. Okay, so it's just a different interpretation of what I see.
Yeah, and if the Orioles get that out of DL Hall, it's a win. But I also think that
I hope he pitches 6 great innings today. I'll be surprised, though. Mark me down in the category of surprised if he gives the team a really effective start. We'll see. Yeah. Maybe his focus will take over and the adrenaline and he'll just be able to do something very special. But he has a special arm, and I think the best way they could use him is as an electric relief pitcher.
Yeah, and that ultimately might. And we've talked about this all year. And I think we all agree that's what he could. There's a good chance that it's what he ends up being. I do look at the fact that he's got that strong Orioles defense behind him. He's throwing to Adley Rutschman, who might be the best catcher in the game already, and he's got a big league coaching staff. And I look at that and I say, if anybody can turn it around for him, it's what he's going into today. But if he becomes Andrew Miller or Josh Hader, that's a win too, right?
Yeah, it's a huge win.
Now, Stan, the Orioles do need to make a corresponding roster move to get DL Hall onto the active roster. He's already on the 40-man, so that's not an issue, but they've got to get somebody out to bring him in. Is it, at this point, you look at it being Lewis Head, or is it going to be Nick Vespi? I think those are the two probably main options there.
Well, if you're starting off with, and let's be real about this, if DL Hall does pitch an electric 5+ innings today, then they're gonna say, well, we're going to adjust and he's going to start, which would make, to me, the thing that makes most sense isn't to knock anybody out of the rotation. They've got 5 starters right now that I count, correct?
That's correct.
I would just go to a 6-man rotation because they want to limit a bunch of these guys' innings coming down the stretch.
Sure.
And they got Tyler Wells coming back, hopefully in the next week or 10 days, something like that. I don't think there's any question. It's with him as a starter right now, the guy to send down is Lewis Head.
Yeah, I think
because you have to have another left-handed relief pitcher.
Absolutely.
You need 2 left-handed relievers.
Now, do you anticipate? Michael I said prior to last weekend that the Orioles are going to have some reinforcements coming from the minor leagues. Now, in order to be eligible for the playoffs, assuming we don't know that the Orioles are going to make the playoffs. Right now, they hold a playoff spot. If the Orioles are to make the playoffs, for these guys to be playoff eligible, they have to be on the 40-man roster before September 1st. Do you anticipate any other moves coming from the minor leagues between now and September 1st so that you can get these guys playoff eligible? And if so, who are we looking at?
I mean, there's I guess there's a notion that Gunnar Henderson could come up, and I guess Stowers would be the other guy. But right now, I'm a little shy on understanding how they'd fit him in right now.
Right. I agree with you because you look at the at-bats that Taron Bavra is taking, you kind of want him in the lineup more often than not. You've already got your established outfield in Santander, Mullins, and Hayes. I would imagine that Brett Phillips might not be long for this team, especially when you see how limited his playing time has been since last weekend. And Kyle Stowers has struck out 7 times his last 2 games. The strikeout rate is still really high.
Right.
I just don't know.
I mean, the guy that I'd see that perhaps could go down would be Tyler Nevin. I mean, he's the frequency in which he plays, and that would be my weak guy on the roster
right. But then you got to find a way to get whoever you're calling up, whether it's Henderson or Westberg or Stowers, you're going to play them every day. So you have to find a way to get them into the lineup. And those are tough decisions that good teams have to make, right, Stan? So it's better to be in this position than the alternative. But it is a difficult decision nonetheless.
The problem they'd have with Nevin, while he's not a plus defender, he doesn't hurt you when he plays third base. He's decent, okay? Is who would be that guy to replace Urias if Urias gets hurt,
I would think it would be Henderson. He's played a really strong third base in AAA and AA this year. I would think it would be Henderson to play third base. Maybe if Urias doesn't get hurt and you just want to make a change, maybe you put Urias at second base. But they love I don't know, man. There's just so many guys on this roster that have value at this point. It's a really tough thing to try and figure out.
Yeah.
And then
the least valuable guy they have of the position players is Nevin right now.
Right, but he's not an everyday player, and the move to get him out would bring in.
But remember, Urias, the one thing we've often talked about him is he breaks down. Now, he doesn't look like he's breaking down at all. There used to be, for me with Urias, there used to be a tell that I could sort of see the way he's moving. Mm-hmm. He looks pretty fresh right now, so not counting on that happening, but they may need somebody that can play some third base.
And he's been a very streaky hitter, so maybe while he's streaking in the wrong direction, get somebody up that can play every day that can kind of give you good quality at bats. Now, Stan, we're going to throw another wrench in the spokes because Grayson Rodriguez has been throwing from 120 feet. He got onto a mound the other day. He and Mike Elias have said that he's going to pitch again off of a game mound this year. With that in mind, will it be for the Orioles, and should it be?
Boy, that's a really. I got asked that question last night on Twitter, and my response was that I think they want him to know. I know they ideally would like him to pitch, so he won't go into spring training next year, worried about is this thing going to hold up and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm sure he's worked extremely hard rehabbing and doing physical therapy for his lat strain. So my thought would be, go back to Norfolk and pitch a little bit. But again, he's potentially so electric that he could end up being, suddenly you put him in our bullpen, in September. I don't know.
And maybe
so I'm I'm tossed and turned on that. I don't think he comes directly up to the Orioles when he's healthy, when they deem him healthy enough to pitch. So, but could he be a September call-up and make a spot start, or do what I'm saying is be another guy in your pen? But I think the mission A for the Orioles is to have him ready to go next spring training.
Oh, I agree.
So,
you look at it, Stan, and you plan on Tyler Wells and Grayson Rodriguez and probably DL Hall being in your starting rotation next year. DL Hall's not going to get much more than 100 innings if he even gets that much this year, right? Grayson Rodriguez and Tyler Wells were on innings limits, and then they both got hurt and missed significant chunks of time. Are you going to have 3 guys in your rotation next year that are on innings limits again when you look at those 3 pitchers?
Again, I'm very interested now that Rock has come out and said that they plan to use DL Hall as a relief pitcher the rest of after this initial start. I don't have him penciled in the starting rotation next year.
Right.
DL Hall. So I think you'd have, Tyler Wells. I think they clearly are going to feel, what is Wells going to finish up with this year? He's at like 85 or 90 now, and the cutoff was going to be about 125. Is that right?
I think the cutoff was probably at like 120. I think that's correct. I'm not quite sure what his inning.
I don't know that he's going to get there this season.
He's currently.
I guess he can.
He's currently.
I guess he can get to him.
Yeah, he's currently at 94.2.
Yeah, 94 and 2/3 innings.
Yeah.
So he could get there.
Yeah, he'll make 120. So that means next year he could probably throw 140 to 150 in.
Yeah, he could make
That's
that
about
jump.
the jump that he.
Yeah, and if you're getting 150 innings out of a starter in today's game, that's
in today's game as a 4th or 5th starter, because you'd like to see, no matter what we saw this year, you'd like to see them want to get better with that rotation.
Yes.
And whether it's signing Lyles, to me, I would try and sign Lyles for another 1-year contract, and go out and get somebody better than Lyles,
right?
As well. So you're gonna have that 8 or 9 contenders for starting spots next year.
Yeah,
and that's a healthy. I think that's a healthy thing, rather than worrying about, well, how are we going to get Spencer Watkins and Dean Kramer innings?
Right.
The thing is, you want to be better than what they are, and they've both been pretty darn good. So the bar's been raised at what you want, but there's no question. I'd love for them to go out and either get 2 guys, new guys that are established major league starting pitchers, or re-sign Lyles and get 1 more guy like that, and keep your fingers crossed. It means can really be back in a meaningful way come May to May 15th next year.
And I'm glad you brought up Means, because I meant to say that too. That's another guy who would probably be on an innings limit next year, coming off of Tommy John surgery. So you potentially 4 guys that are on innings limits next year. Stan, I got to tell you,
when you've got as many numbers as the Orioles look like right now, it's not that daunting a task to envision a Watkins and a Kramer getting starts next year, and Voth, that there's like sort of a yo-yo thing or a 6-man rotation. So I'm not that worried about the pitch limits. I'm worried about the quality of pitchers that they have. And right now, it's hard to toss Kramer, Watkins, and Voth to the curb,
Right. I got to tell you, I think that the guy with the highest upside of those 3 is Voth at this point. The elite spin rate on both his fastball and his curveball, what he's done since coming to the Orioles.
His curveball, when he really uses that curveball, it's a pitch that hitters aren't used to seeing now. He threw one. Yandy Diaz is a really professional hitter, and he threw him one last night that sort of knocked his socks off. I don't think it was a strikeout pitch, but he got to 2 strikes on it, and it was really, quite remarkable.
Yeah, I was working. I didn't get to see too much of Voth's performance last night, but Zach said that the curveball last night was absolutely fantastic, and I've seen it in the past look very good at times. So, look, it's an interesting and good problem for the Orioles to have. I got to tell you, Stan, my pipe dream for the rest of the season is that you get Grayson Rodriguez up here maybe at the end of the month, and then you have and DL Hall going piggybacking. In that one opens the game, the other one comes in. To me, that would be incredible. But that's an interesting way to think about it, Paul. No question about it. Stan, how much fun are you having with this team this year? I know you don't do rankings, so I'm not going to ask you to rank this team among the funnest teams that you've watched in Orioles history, but how much fun are you having watching this team after what we've been watching for the last 5 years?
It's fabulous. I either go to the ballpark or sit on my sofa, and I'm watching a game that I feel means something.
Yeah.
I didn't feel in basically the second half of 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. That's 5 seasons. I was 65 years old when this rebuild started, and I'm 70 now. Mm-hmm. So I'm having a blast watching the games.
It's so much fun, and it really reminds me a lot of that 2012 club where you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it just never does, and they only got better and better and better. It's been an awesome season so far, Stan.
Yep.
Now I do want to ask,
and it feels like we're only just beginning.
Right. And that's what's so exciting to know the conversation that we're having. I never dreamed we'd have this conversation this year, and then to know that it's only going up from here is just amazing. It's awesome. It's awesome. What more could you ask for as an Orioles fan?
It really is. I give good look. I disagree with Mike Elias on the usage of Hall right now, but overall, you've got to give Mike like an A+ on what he's accomplished here.
I agree. Now, Stan, before I let you go, another big thing in the news is that Fernando Tatis Jr. failed a drug test back in March, and he is suspended for the rest of the year. It was a performance-enhancing drug. He's suspended for 80 games. This after he had that motorcycle accident where he ended up breaking his wrist. He was only supposed to miss 3 months. He's missed 4 to this point, 4 or 5 months.
Great long-term signing. And now I read a headline last night. I didn't read the story. It says GM says he can't trust Tatis.
Yeah.
Well, when did you knew you could trust him when you signed him to a $350 million contract?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
That's a crackpot organization.
And I'll tell you, he's still only, 22, 23 years old. He's still young enough to turn it around and make amends for this and prove that this was just a stupid mistake that he made. But now you've got teammates. You've got Musgrove coming out and coming out against him, and Mike Clevenger coming out against him. And you have to
he's going to have to regain respect in that clubhouse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that
this was really just a remarkable turn of events. Look, I knocked Preller because to me, Preller's a bit of a fraud. Who's got somehow bamboozled. He's like a snake oil salesman to his bosses that they just keep upping the payroll, it's just after he worked that hard to say, hey, now we really got something because Tatis is going to be back in 10 days or 2 weeks. And now we got Soto and we got Brandon Drury. They're still a good team on paper without Tatis. And Bob Melvin's an excellent manager. Mm-hmm. But that's really a bonehead play by that kid.
The thing is, how does the team not know this before it gets announced? With the Orioles, with Rafael Palmeiro back in 2005, the Orioles knew well in advance that Palmeiro had failed a drug test. How do you not know? I
did not know. I did not know that they didn't know.
Well, because
I assumed they would have known.
Because they made these trades less than 2 weeks ago with the intent of him being part of that lineup. There's no way that the drug test that he failed in March is that.
Oh, this is a March. I haven't read the article. This is a March drug test.
I read something.
Then they had to know.
Right.
They had to know.
Yeah, it just doesn't
then
make a lot of sense.
Then again, he's conning his bosses then to believe he didn't know.
Yeah, the whole thing is.
It really is. And he had ringworm.
Yeah, or at least he claims that he did. That's what his excuse for testing positive. But the thing that he tested positive for, from what I heard, actually has a negative impact on ringworm, makes it worse, and it's actually something that's known to help heal wounds. So, I don't know. I'm sure more will come out. I'm not a specialist on this stuff. I just think it's stupid. You got to know what you're putting in your body. All right, Stan, we are up against it. Thanks so much. We will talk to you next week.
All right, guys. Talk to you later. See you, Zach. Talk to you later. Bye.
And that was Stan the Fan, Charles. It was 2 great shows for you every week. Every Monday night, Stan and former Orioles pitcher Ross Grimsley visit with a different guest from the world of baseball. And every Thursday night, Stan and Gary Stein chat with a different newsmaker from the world of sports. This week, Stan caught up with Baltimore Arena general manager Frank Remish, who actually plays in my baseball league.
Really?
Yeah, when we were playing the Yankees in my league, he was playing first base. Nice guy. He called up with Frank Remish to discuss what the renovated arena will do for the city. Find the show under the videos tab at facebook.com/PressBoxSports or at PressBoxOnline.com/video. Stan and Ross are back for another great show Monday with Orioles scout Ken Guthrie, who was the lead scout for number 1 pick, Jackson Holiday. Zach, can you do sounding off in about 2 minutes? Can you get it in about 2 minutes?
I'll get it in quick.
That's what she said.
Okay. I just wanted to talk about something I found pretty cool this week. So a lot of people on social media were talking about Edwin Diaz and his use of the song Narco by Timmy Trumpet as his walkout song as the closer. We know about Mariano Rivera using Enter Sandman, the famous Metallica song, his walkout song. And I've kind of thought about this a lot over previous years, and I've talked about it in other sounding offs, that I think the baseball fan experience should use more of this kind of stuff, and I think they should get fans more involved like they are right now. That got so many people talking with Edwin Diaz using this song, and it got so many people excited. It was blowing up on social media all week, and I think stuff like that is going to be, more commonplace and should be more commonplace inside baseball stadiums. And like I said, it's been happening for a while, but with more people adopting it and more players using it and, kind of building a brand through these songs, I think it's really cool.
Kind of like the home run chain for the Orioles and the home run jacket for the Blue Jays, stuff like that.
All of this stuff is very, I think it kind of brings people together. It's exciting, and it definitely improves the fan experience at the ballpark. So Felix Bautista, Orioles closer, he's the new closer for the O's, and he started using the Farmer in the Dell, the whistle from Omar Little and The Wire. The same thing the Ravens started doing last year before they announced the starting lineup for the game. This is something that, again, I love it. I hope he keeps using it. I just want more of these MLB teams to start figuring out ways to get fans excited. I think this is awesome. If you saw the video of the whistle going off in Camden Yards and the lights were flashing and everything, I
was at that game. We left during the rain delay because we had a pup to go home and take care of, so I missed that part. But I saw videos.
But stuff like that, I love the way it involves everyone. It gets the fans excited. I just love this stuff right now.
Yeah. Well, he had nothing to do with that.
He had nothing to do.
He had nothing to do. He didn't even know what it was from.
So that's what I'm telling.
The Orioles did that for him. They actually recorded his hype video. That day, Rock said that you could see the smoke from the hype video in the clubhouse. But yeah, he said, "Look,
I love it."
He said, "Look, if something that the fans love, I love it."
Yeah.
He's like, "I don't really know anything about it." He was like, "Last year they started playing the Undertaker's music when I would come in. I thought that was cool." So he was like, "I don't know what I'll do in the future." He's like, "I'm up for anything." So
more of this kind of stuff, baseball.
But it was definitely cool of the Orioles to do that. We really got to catch a break because we got to get Rich. Rich has limited time, so we got to hit a break. When we come back, Rich Dubroff from BaltimoreBaseball.com here on the Batter Round.
Summer is in full swing, and so is the summer seasonal menu at Glory Days Grill. Start with the opener, flash fried pork belly with their popular Korean No. 2 sauce. And try their South Carolina barbecue chicken, or back by popular demand, the lobster roll with grilled corn. Also try the irresistible crab and lobster fries, or the very berry salad with chicken. And for dessert, the Cracker Jack sundae with a waffle, ice cream, and Cracker Jacks. This menu will be gone. Find out more and get your order in at GloryDaysGrill.com. Glory Days Grill, great food, good sports.
Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel, the ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
I'm Griffin Bass, and I have the extraordinary, mind-blowing, and life-affirming pleasure of being the new producer for the absolute funniest, smartest, and most handsome sports host in all of Baltimore. Wait a second, Glenn, I'm working for you, not Jeremy Kahn. If you're not listening to Glenn Clark Radio, here's what you're missing.
He's Coach Kevin Willard.
Glenn, thanks for having me.
Baltimore Ravens wide receiver Rashad Bateman.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
He is outfielder Cedric Mullins.
Thank you guys for having me.
Trey Mancini.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Mr. Marcus Williams, who's now with us.
Man, appreciate it. Happy to be on.
Ravens kicker Justin Tucker.
Thanks for having me.
Adley Rutschman.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
John Angelos.
Thanks a lot. Good to be with you.
Ryan Mountcastle.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Marlon Humphrey.
Thank you.
Talia Tungavailoa.
Thank you guys for having me.
He is J.K. Dobbins.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
The great Ray Lewis.
Always good to be on.
He is Mr. Cal Ripken Jr.
Good chatting with you.
Watch Glenn Clark Radio at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline and listen live at PressBoxOnline.com/radio or anytime on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or anywhere you get your podcasts.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
All right, welcome back into the Bat Around. The first hour of today's show was brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. The ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. We now have from BaltimoreBaseball.com. He may have been at the FanDuel Sportsbook this morning placing a few bets. He is Rich Dubroff. Rich, good morning. It's Paul. It's Zach. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you guys?
We are excellent. Orioles are playing good baseball. DL Hall's debuting today. It's a beautiful day outside. Couldn't ask for a better Saturday. Let's get right into it, Rich. DL Hall is the news of the day. Why did Mike Elias deem that now is the right time to bring up DL Hall? I'm sorry?
Sorry, I didn't. You're going in and out.
Oh, my apologies. Why did Mike Elias deem that now is the right time to bring DL Hall into the fold?
Well, he doesn't have very many innings. He doesn't have very many innings left in his, in their plan, and they want his remaining innings to be used in the major leagues. I obviously thought that he was going to be up before now.
Mm-hmm.
But these are important. These are important games. We're getting into the championship distance now, and he thinks that Hall's innings can be used to help the Orioles get to the postseason. I mean, that's it. I mean, that's why people have gotten so used to losing around here that the mentality has changed. They're bringing him up not to take a look at him, but because they think that he can help them get to the postseason.
Well, yeah, and look, today is pretty much a spot start for him, and then he's going to be used as a multi-inning reliever the rest of the way from what we're hearing.
He is, from what we're hearing. Well, where did you hear that?
It was in Rock Kabako put that out this morning. So that's what I read on social media. It could have I tend to.
I just wanted to make sure you were. I didn't know if you had Mike on earlier today to talk about that.
Oh no, we did not have Mike on earlier today. Matt Kremnitzer, who is one of our reporters here for Pressbox, put out this morning that Rock Kabako basically said that was the plan. He says, Rock says DL Hall will get a spot start today and then be used in a relief role for the rest of the season. And then the little quip says, Hall is starting today, but no one is expected to leave the rotation to create space for him. I'm hearing that he's likely to make a spot start.
Well, I mean, we could have a six-man, they could have a six-man rotation.
Yep.
I mean, lots of, things are not, with the Orioles, things are going to be planned day to day.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
If he can give you a start now, fine.
and then they're trying to save innings with some of these other guys, and then maybe later he starts again. Yeah. So we don't know. I don't think that there's any, I don't know that there's any huge plan. You got 50 games, and they're trying to win as many of the 50 games as possible to get to the postseason. And and I would say, and it's no surprise to think that Hall could be used in bulk relief because they've kind of moved away from Keegan Aiken in bulk relief. Aiken is being used more regularly. Yeah. So it's going to be it's certainly going to be interesting to see how he's used, and to see how he does, because they've decided they need him to get to the postseason.
Now, there was a long period of time where you couldn't talk about DL Hall without talking about Grayson Rodriguez, and vice versa. Grayson Rodriguez was throwing from 120 feet, and then he got onto a mound the other day. We're pretty sure he's going to pitch again this season. Will it be for the Orioles? Can you envision a scenario in which you have a Grayson Rodriguez DL Hall piggyback?
Why not? I mean, it could be anything. It could be anything. Mm-hmm. I mean, whatever it takes for them to get into the postseason, they're going to do. If they think that Grayson Rodriguez can help them, with his innings, get to the postseason, they will. Now, keep in mind, they're going to have in September, they're going to only be able to add 2 players, one of which will be a pitcher, one of which won't. And so if they add, let's say Grayson Rodriguez with 2 weeks to go in the season, which is, let's say, he's just starting to throw now, and let's say it takes him, a month or so to get into game shape, and then maybe he could help at the end of the season, but then you're taking with Hall and Rodriguez, you're basically having 2 starters, and you're cutting down the number of relievers you have at a time when you may need a lot of relievers. So there's so many complexities here, and don't think that there's some big plan, because they'll wait and they'll wait and see how they could get into the postseason.
Oh, sure.
And if Grayson Rodriguez can help them get into the postseason, they will. But they don't have the luxury, with a lot of these starters not going 6 innings. They don't have the luxury of pulling, of adding, let's say, a sixth starter, maybe, and having 1 fewer relievers. I mean, because I say a 6-man rotation, but they could use Hall as a swing guy. But if you do that, then you're having basically 6 starters and 7 relievers. And if you're using 3 or 4 relievers every night, as they have been, that's difficult to sustain.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You've already put a lot of innings on your bullpen's arms to this point. I totally understand where you're coming from. Now, you talk about Grayson Rodriguez, and maybe he can help you for the final couple of weeks of the season. But say that the Orioles do make the playoffs, wouldn't he have to be added to the 40-man roster?
Sorry, you're going in and out again.
Wouldn't Grayson Rodriguez have to be added to the Orioles 40-man roster ahead of September 1st to be playoff eligible? That's not a thing anymore?
No. That was never a thing. It is getting someone from outside the organization. If they would acquire someone from outside the organization, let's say they picked somebody up on waivers on September 2nd because they thought that they could help them, they would not be eligible for the postseason. But they can bring. There have been a number of players who have made their debuts in the postseason in the last few years.
Yeah, I remember Mondesi for the Royals did that.
Right, and there were a couple others also, like K-Rod when he first came up with the Angels in 2002. He didn't come up till like September 10th, and he helped get them to the help them win the World Series. So no, that would not be the case.
I appreciate the clarification because I remembered a September 1st date, but I could not remember that it was if you had somebody come in that was outside the organization. So thank you for clearing that up for me.
And also, that's when they had a second trading deadline.
Right.
That was more important. There was a second trading deadline, where you had to clear waivers between August 1st and August 31st.
Right.
But that's now good. But that's now gone. But yeah, I mean, it's like if they get somebody on waivers tomorrow, they're eligible. But if they wait until after September, September 1st or later, they can only be used in the regular season.
Gotcha. Well, again, thank you for the clarity there. Now, we know that DL Hall is up here. We know that Michael Elias talked about reinforcements from the minor leagues, and I'm paraphrasing there, over the last 2 months. We're waiting on top-performing prospects like Gunnar Henderson, Jordan Westburg, Kyle Stowers. Kyle Stowers has struck out 7 times in his last 2 games. While he's hitting .270, he has a ton of extra base hits. The high strikeout rate still remains. Is that really the reason that we haven't seen Kyle Stowers except for his cup of coffee in Toronto a few months ago?
Yeah, unfortunately, I guess the cell service here in Tampa isn't great because you keep going in and out. But I think you're asking me about Kyle Stowers.
Yes.
And the and if he's going to be brought up, he could be. They're going to get the opportunity to add another player, at September 1st, and maybe it's going to be him. And they could decide to bring him up beforehand. But the only reason to bring him up now is it's again with the same thing was with the pitchers, is if they think that he can get them to the postseason, they don't need to take a look at him. If this were a time when they were 15 games out, you want to see what he has, so you can make judgments on the future. But now you're trying to, you're trying to win.
Right.
So if they think Stowers can help them, that's fine. I mean, right now, if you brought him up, he probably, there probably aren't regular at bats for him, barring an injury. Even if you replaced one of the outfielders that they have now, one of the reserve outfielders. I mean, you have Santander hitting well, and I know Hayes hasn't been hitting great, but he's playing regularly, and Mullins is playing regularly. So, and I guess you could make him the DH, but you want to keep Rutschman in there lots of times on days he's not catching.
And Vavra's putting up good at bats.
Yeah, Vavra. So all of a sudden you have these really good problems.
Yeah.
that the Orioles have. For the last few years they've had all these horrible problems. Like, where are they going to get guys to do this now? Now it's where are they going to find time for all these space for all these prospects? So those are good problems to have now.
Absolutely. Now, another good problem that they have is that Tyler Wells traveled with the team to Tampa Bay, which, if we read the tea leaves, usually means he's probably nearing a return to baseball activities. I was under the impression, this is just because this is how my mind works, that I was very doubtful that we'd see Tyler Wells or Grayson Rodriguez again this year, just because they were already on the innings limit and there's no need to rush them back as they're a big part of the future. But now Tyler Wells, he's probably going to pitch again for the Orioles this year, correct? Did we lose you, Rich?
Yeah, no, I lost you. I'm here.
Tyler Wells probably going to pitch for the Orioles again this year.
Well,
right?
I didn't hear you, but let me just I'll answer what I think you've asked, which is what's going on with Tyler Wells.
Yes.
Tyler Wells has been traveling with them, since he got hurt.
Oh, okay.
And the Orioles, this regime doesn't automatically send players down to Sarasota to work out. They send them down to Sarasota to work out if if they think that there's reason, if they think that they need to be in a throwing a more intense throwing program, throwing to batters. So he's not close to that. And yes, it is very possible that he won't pitch the rest of the year. It's possible that Rodriguez might not pitch the rest of the year. I think they just want to see what they have with him, because he threw so few innings this year that when we get to 2023, his number of innings will be limited. And if they could get him in, if they can add 10 or 12 or 15 innings to his base this year, that'll help. That'll help get him more innings in 2023.
And Rich, that leads me to my final question. I know you got to run, so I'm going to try and make it quick for you. The Orioles, it looks like they may have as many as 4 pitchers next year on an innings limit when you consider Wells and Rodriguez, and then not Dean Gray, but DL Hall, and then John Means coming back from Tommy John surgery. Do you think that makes them more aggressive in the free agent pitching market this offseason?
Sure. I mean, I think that I think that's what they're going to, that's what they're going to need. I mean, the outfielders, they look like they have, good outfielders. They have terrific infield prospects. Obviously, they're set behind the plate. They may go out and get another, a backup catcher and some, backup infielders and stuff. But I think, I think they'll be more aggressive. I mean, I don't think that they're going to go out and spend, buy somebody for 5 years and $120 million. But I think that they're going to be more aggressive than they have been.
Yeah, and that's what Michael Elias alluded to. He said it's lift off from here. So we will see what he decides to do this offseason and moving forward. Rich, thank you for taking time. I know you're a busy man. We certainly appreciate it. We will talk to you soon. All right, have a great weekend.
Okay, thanks very much. And hopefully, next time I talk to you, the cell service will be a little better.
Everything sounded fine on our end, so our apologies that it wasn't that clear on your end.
All right, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Take care. And that was Rich Dubroff providing all the clarity for us. So, for example, the clarity, I thought that you had to be part of the 40-man roster before September 1st. Apparently, that's just for a waiver claim or somebody that's added to the organization. Did not know that. And then the other thing was, look, the Orioles don't tell me things. I get emails from them about the Orioles roster moves and their game day stuff and what's coming to Camden Yards. I get those emails, but they don't tell me. They don't call me and say, hey, Paul, just want to let you know that Tyler Wells has been traveling with the team since the injury. I have social media, and social media led me to believe that this was the first time he traveled with the team since hurting his back, and that probably meant he was closer to returning to baseball activities. Now knowing that Rich doesn't think that he's that close, I'm going back to my original statement that I don't think Tyler Wells pitches for the Orioles again this year.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, you figure you've got, 6 weeks left in the season? 6, 7 weeks? It's about 7 weeks.
How many games exactly is it around the...
You're at, the
50 mark,
so
somewhere in that area?
They're 59 and 50. Yeah, they have exactly 50 games left. They have 50 games left. I don't see the need to rush it. Your rotation's pitching well. Grayson Rodriguez, I think, is more likely to come back and pitch this year, and DL Hall is up now. The rotation's pitching well. The bullpen's pitching well. Unless there's a screaming need, I really don't see him returning to the Orioles in 2022.
Right.
Unless they view him as somebody that can help them in the playoffs. And you got to get there first. So
right.
We'll see. We'll see, man. But look, the thing that worries me is the innings limits that I think are going to be on a number of Orioles pitchers. And that's why I think that, and we're going to talk about an Orioles banter after the break, but I do think that you need to really address the starting rotation and maybe one big-time bat in the offseason. But we'll get into that later in Orioles banter. Just want to remind you that these are the final days for you to pick up the very special Salute to Coaches issue of Press Box with John Harbaugh on the cover and 8 other area high school, college, and pro coaches recognized inside with amazing stories told by the athletes whose lives they've impacted the most. You can find the Salute to Coaches issue for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always read every Press Box print issue at PressBoxOnline.com. And coming soon, our football preview issue, which you are not going to want to miss. It features Ravens tight end Mark Andrews on the cover and profiles of players from Maryland, Navy, Towson, and Morgan State, all included inside. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. That'll be out in newsstands. And are newsstands even a thing anymore?
Pressbox actually has them, yeah.
Oh, they have newsstands?
They do. They actually, there's one on the Towson campus, so I see it quite often.
Oh, very cool. So they'll be at newsstands, and they'll be at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores in the coming days. We got to catch our second break. When we come back, the payoff pitch around the league and Orioles banter.
Visit Howard County presents the 2022 Major League Quidditch Championship, a Harry Potter-inspired, real-life, full-contact, mixed-gender, 12-team Quidditch tournament happening at Troy Park in Elkridge, August 20th through the 22nd. For tickets and more information, go to visithowardcounty.com. Maryland, be open for it.
These are the final days for you to pick up the very special Salute to Coaches issue of Press Box, with John Harbaugh on the cover and 8 other area high school, college, and pro coaches recognized inside, with amazing stories told by the athletes whose lives they've impacted the most. You can find the Salute to Coaches issue for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always read every Press Box print issue at PressBoxOnline.com. And coming soon, our football preview issue, which features Ravens tight end Mark Andrews on the cover and profiles of players from Maryland, Navy, Towson, and Morgan State.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Swagger is a daily fantasy sports site created for sports fans who want some skin in the game and a real shot at winning. Forget plus-minus odds, Swagger uses points for a better way to understand probabilities. If you're tired of losing because of one bad pick, with Swagger, you don't need to be perfect to win. You just create a lineup of 4 to 10 simple player props and score points for the ones you get right. So you can be half right and all right with Swagger. Swagger offers the most player props and biggest payouts of any DFS site, as much as 50 times your buy-in. Plus, you can play all the major pro sports, including your favorite local teams. If you're ready to play, visit playwithswagger.com/pressbox to sign up, and Swagger will give you $10 free to try them out. Plus, they'll match your first deposit 100% up to $100. It's free money to play with Swagger. Swagger, daily fantasy for all fankind. Playwithswagger.com/pressbox.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows that the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn, over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
Sports betting has come to Maryland, and we're ready to help you win some money. Tune in for Simply the Bets every Tuesday morning at 11:40. FanDuel Sportsbook Assistant GM Leon Twyman and VSiN's Aaron Oster join the guys every week to give you all of the info you need and offer you a few winners. And every other Thursday at 11:40, tune in for Weekend at Bookies as Andrew Stecca and Alloy Sports' Brad Kronthal help make you some money for the weekend. So come win some money with us on Simply the Bets every Tuesday and Weekend at Bookies every other Thursday, brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. Watch at YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline. Is brought to you today by PressBox's Glenn Clark Radio, which is the definitive place to find the best daily discussion of Baltimore sports. Watch the show every weekday from 10 to noon at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline or facebook.com/PressBoxSports, or, wait for it, listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio with podcasts available on iTunes, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcast. Basically, you have no excuse to not catch up with Glenn Clark Radio. It is freaking everywhere. And you never know who might pop up on GCR. This week, the guys caught up with Austin Hayes, Ryan Ripken, Hall of Famer Rob Woodson, and more. You can find all of those conversations in the Glenn Clark Radio Week in Review feature right now at PressBoxOnline.com.
Well done.
Thank you.
That was well done.
Thank you, sir. And now, the payoff pitch around the league. The Orioles pounded out a season-high 19 hits, including 5 from Jorge Mateo and 4 from Rougned Odor, while Austin Voth took a no-hitter into the 6th inning as the Orioles crushed Tampa Bay 10-3 to take over sole possession of the 3rd wildcard spot in the American League. Jose Ramirez homered and drove in 4 runs as part of a 3-hit performance, and Cal Quantrill threw 7 shutout innings, allowing just 1 hit with 7 strikeouts to lead Cleveland over Toronto 8-0, pulling the Orioles within 1.5 games of second place in the East. Julio Rodriguez returned to the Mariners lineup after missing 11 games with a wrist injury to drive in 2 runs on 2 hits as Seattle took care of the Rangers 6-2 and keep a 2-game advantage over the Orioles for the top wild card spot. Aaron Judge hit his 46th home run, but the Red Sox scored 1 in the 9th and 1 in the 10th to come back on the Yankees for the 3-2 victory, narrowing the Yankees' lead in the East over the Orioles to 11.5 games. Gilberto Celestino and Gio Urshela each homered in the Twins' 4-0 victory over the lifeless Angels. The win kept the Twins a half game back of the Orioles for the third wild card spot. Michael Kopech struck out 11 over 6 no-hit innings as workload management was the only thing that could stop the White Sox hurler who helped lead his team to a 2-0 victory over the down-and-out Tigers to keep their deficit to the Orioles in the wild card race at 2.5 games. Michael Harris and Matt Olson each homered in a 4-3 victory over the Marlins that had nothing to do with the Orioles. Juan Soto collected 2 hits in his return to Nationals Park, and Manny Machado doubled twice and drove in 2 as the Nationals were no match for the Padres in the 11-5 loss. The loss dropped the Nationals to 37-77, the worst record in baseball, and 23 games behind the Orioles, who are clearly the superior team in the Mid-Atlantic region. Max Scherzer allowed 9 hits but just 1 run over 7 innings, but the Phillies managed to pull out a 2-1 victory. Thanks to Alec Boehm's RBI single and sac fly, the Orioles did not care. Tony Gonsolin improved to 14-1 in 6 2/3 innings of 1-run balls. The Dodgers won their 12th straight game 8-3 over the Royals, perhaps giving the Orioles a glimpse at their World Series opponent come October. Kyle Tucker homered and drove in 4 to lead the Astros to a 7-5 victory over the A's. The Astros reportedly thanked the Lord above after the game that they didn't play in the same division as the red-hot Orioles. Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt each homered to provide all the scoring for the Cardinals in the 3-1 victory over the Brewers. Yes, the same Cardinals that lost 2-3 to the Orioles in St. Louis earlier this season. Antonio Senzatella recorded a quality start, and catcher Brian Serven homered to lead the Rockies over the D-backs 5-3. Former Orioles organizational players Zach Davies, Christian Walker, and Jose Iglesias all played in the game. Carlos Rodon struck out 7 over 6 innings, a 2-run ball, but in the Giants, you know what, this was the one I didn't pay attention to the final score. I think it was 4-3 Giants, but I could be wrong. 5-3. In the Giants' 5-3 victory over the Pirates. Rumor has it Rodon saw the start as a potential addition for the Orioles rotation when he opts out this fall. Wow. Reds and Cubs were off Friday. They begin a 2-game series tonight that Zach is going to preview for you right now.
By the way, you stumbled over the name Senzatella. That's the name, if we were doing like a tally of the name I've screwed up most in the payoff pitcher on the league, that would be at the top of it. So I feel
it correctly. I just
Oh, I never say it correctly.
It caught me off guard for a
second.
See,
I don't even know what it is at this point. I think it's confused me because I've said it. Senzatella. Okay.
Senzatella.
So maybe I said it
Antonio Senzatella.
It's a great name, really. It is a great name. Not a lot of games on tap today, but I'll get through them.
Did you like my Orioles theme?
I did.
The
Carlos Rodon. I gotta laugh at that one.
The Phillies won 2-1. The Orioles did not care.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. All right, so Braves and Marlins 1:10 at Lone Depot Park. That's game 1 of a doubleheader today. Kyle Mueller versus Jesus Luzardo. I love Luzardo. He's getting on track with the Marlins there. 3.29 ERA. He'll go today for them. Guardians and Jays. Tristan McKenzie. He's been on a very hot streak lately, pitching very well against Mitchell White, just acquired from the Dodgers. Blue Jays Guardians 3:07 at the Rogers Center. Your Orioles. DL Hall makes his first MLB start against Shane McClanahan, a guy who's incredibly good. 2.24 ERA, but the Orioles beat up on him a little bit last time. 4:10 at Tropicana Field. Cubs and Reds. Adrian Sampson, Graham Ashcraft. 6:40 at Great American Ballpark. Padres and Nats. Juan Soto again returns to Washington, D.C. Yu Darvish has been pitching very well against Anibal Sanchez. 7:05 in the district. Braves at Marlins. Game 2 of that doubleheader. Marlins do not know who they're starting yet at 7:10, but Ian Anderson will be going for the Braves, looking to get back on track. Dodgers and Royals. Brad Keller versus Andrew Heaney. 7:10 at Kauffman Stadium. Athletics and Astros, 7:10. Zach Logue versus Lance McCullers. I believe this is Lance McCullers' first start of the year, so it's interesting to see him.
First start since last October.
Right, so interested to see him coming back, and we'll see where he's at this year. Phillies and Mets. Divisional matchup there. Aaron Nola, Jacob deGrom makes his second start of the season, 7:10 at Citi Field. deGrom pitched very well in his first start, or in his first 2 starts, I should say. Tigers and White Sox, Matt Manning versus Lucas Giolito, 7:10 at Guaranteed Rate Field. Giolito looking to get back on track for the Sox. Mariners and Rangers, 7:15 at Globe Life Field. The lefty Marco Gonzalez versus the righty Dane Dunning. Yankees and Red Sox, the classic matchup there, 7:15 at Fenway Park. Frankie Montas, the newly acquired Yankee, against Cutter Crawford for the Red Sox. Brewers and Cardinals, 7:15. Corbin Burns, the ace, against Adam Wainwright, the vet, 7:15 at Busch Stadium. D-backs and Rockies, 8:10 at Coors Field. Zach Gallen versus Jose Urena. Love Gallen. He's having another great year for the D-backs. Unfortunately, they are not having a great year. Pirates and Giants, 9:05 at Oracle Park. Tyler Beede versus Logan Webb. And the final game of the night, we have Twins and Angels, 9:07. The former Oriole Dylan Bundy versus the rookie. He's finally back up, Reed Demers.
All right. Reed Detmers is a guy that you were like, why are you sending him down?
I did a sounding off about that.
This
I
is
like Reed
stupid.
Detmers. I like Reed Detmers.
How do they pitch in the minors?
I have no idea, if I'm being honest. I'll check.
Well, Zach's going to check on that. Meanwhile, reports are that the Jets starting quarterback, Zach Wilson, it's a minor injury that's going to require arthroscopic surgery. He's expected to miss 2 to 4 weeks. The Ravens open the season 4 weeks from now.
Joe Flacco.
Against the Jets. Joe Flacco may be making that start there, hon.
I would love that. That'd be amazing.
I think
we'll talk about it at the end of the show.
I think that would be awesome. We will talk about what I want.
It's your show, Paul. By the way, one game he actually only pitched down there, and he pitched to a 1.5 ERA. So good start for Reed Detmers.
So what did he give up? Like 1 run in 5 innings?
That 1 run in 6 innings. And then right now he's a 3.4 ERA in the majors. So he's doing something right. The Angels never should have sent him down in the first place. I don't know why they did that. But anyway, point is Reed Detmers is back. He's making a start today.
My wife keeps sending me snaps of our pets.
I see you smiling over there.
Just
right?
laying around the house.
Your boy Bruce.
Bruce, I love that dog. He's awesome. He's had a bit of an upset stomach the last couple of days, but it's getting better today. We're headed on vacation. We're leaving him for the first time ever.
Where are you guys going again? I forgot about this.
Cancun. No, we're going to Ocean City.
Cancun would be awesome.
Yeah.
Ocean City's still a lot of fun.
Yeah, we have our family owns my family owns a condo down there. Okay. So we're going down tonight, and we'll be back Thursday afternoon.
Okay.
So yeah, but it's our first time leaving Bruce. My 14-year-old niece and 16-year-old nephew are going to be taking care of him every day.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it's my first time owning a dog, and then Laura's first time owning a dog where like she didn't live with her parents. You know what I mean? So like, and it's our first time leaving him. It's his first time in his life that he won't be around us, right? Well, since he was 8 weeks old, that he won't be around us, and I don't want him to like be scared or like nervous or like, am I ever going to see them again? I get it. He's a dog.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, I want him to know that like we're coming back, and there's just no way to tell him that. Because he's a dog. He doesn't understand.
Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah, that's correct. He does not understand that.
Anyway, the life and times of Paul Valley. Hey, Zach, what's the title of your autobiography?
We're not going to talk about that. But autobiography, if I wrote an autobiography, I'm pretty confident it'd be good. It'd be interesting.
Nobody cares about Zach.
Not yet.
I care about you as a person, as a human being.
Not yet, they don't.
Zach, I wouldn't read your autobiography, and I like you, man.
Well,
You're
listen,
a good friend of mine.
My dad's friend, who I don't really think he's like famous or anything, he wrote an autobiography. I think anybody can do it, right?
Yeah, but you got to have an audience. Look, if you end up climbing the rungs of the baseball world and becoming a general manager, and then you're a wildly successful general manager.
Yeah.
Well, even if you're not wildly successful,
I'll be fired after a year.
Called My Life in Baseball, and there better be at least 2 chapters dedicated to me.
Wow, that'd be a lot of chapters.
One chapter.
What would I say?
Talking about your time on the Bat-Around with legendary local Baltimore sports talk radio host Paul Valley.
Wow. Okay, I'll make sure to include that. I'm going to write it down right now so I don't forget when I'm famous.
If you forget about me,
I wouldn't forget about you.
Autobiography, and if you forget about this show in your autobiography, we are no longer friends.
I'm going to write, the first paragraph is going to say, I really gained a lot of respect and admiration for that guy when he named his dog after Bruce Springsteen.
If you put that in your book, I will never talk to you again.
Okay.
His name is Bruce Wayne, damn it. He's the Bark Knight, and you get it right. It's way more epic.
I do love that. That's cool.
He's the Bark Knight. Mm-hmm. Anyway, God, talking to me about things nobody cares about, right? What you do care about, Orioles banter. And look, there's no title for this. And a lot of times with these things, I used to put like a lot of effort, time, and energy into making up an Orioles banter segment and like having talking points. And then I just, like, it's so much better when we can just talk baseball.
Loosely about it,
yeah,
sure.
When we can hold on loosely and don't let go. So what I want to talk about first is DL Hall. And I love Stan. I respect Stan. He's been a mentor of sorts to me. I appreciate and respect and value Stan to the nth degree. I do not agree with him about DL Hall. I think it is far,
and that's okay. It's what sports radio is about.
Right. And I think it's far too soon to say he isn't going to be this. And Stan isn't necessarily saying he isn't going to be this. Stan is saying that in his mind, DL Hall will ultimately end up being a high-impact reliever.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that on this show a number of times. We talked about it earlier this year, and I've mentioned it. I've asked numerous people, do you think that ultimately DL Hall ends up in the back end of a bullpen? And everybody all the people that cover the Orioles have said no, the Orioles envision him as a starter. But you look at the 5.6 walks per nine in the minor leagues this year.
Yeah.
You look at the high strikeout totals, the ability to throw 4 pitches, the 100-mile-an-hour fastball all from the left side, right? And that screams late inning reliever. Now, look, if he was putting up the numbers that Grayson Rodriguez put up at AAA with a .87 WHIP and a 2.08 ERA, then yeah, he's a future ace of your staff.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think he has better stuff than Grayson Rodriguez.
Oh, I agree too.
But Grayson Rodriguez consistently pounds the strike zone, and that's the difference. I do think that you can't read into what he's done into what DL Hall has done at the minor league level and say that's who he is. Because while he has pitched to Adley Rutschman, he hasn't pitched to Adley Rutschman at the major league level with one of the best major league defenses behind him and a pitching coaching staff that has led the Orioles to a 3.88 team ERA as of earlier this week. Which would be the third best team ERA of the last 30 years.
Yeah.
Right? So I wouldn't be shocked to see him go out and throw 4 innings today, walk 4, strike out 8, and leave after giving up 3 runs. Right? I wouldn't be surprised to see that. I also wouldn't be surprised to see him go 6 have a Kyle Bradish type of deal.
Yeah.
Where he goes 6 in the third innings, he gives up 2 runs, and unlike Bradish, strikes out 11.
Right.
Throwing to Adley Rutschman with that defense behind you and that Orioles coaching staff there to help you out, I think makes a huge difference for a guy like DL Hall.
I agree. Yeah, I don't like to make blanket statements when it comes to baseball. I think that's one of the biggest traps you can fall down is saying, a guy's going to be this or a guy's going to be that. I don't like conclusively saying things, without necessarily having any reason behind it. And you can say, sure, DL Hall might be a reliever. I don't like saying he will be because I think they're going to give him that chance. I really do, and I really want them to give him that chance. And I honestly think he's deserved to have that chance to become a starter. And there's a good chance that's where he sticks. But maybe there's a higher probability of a chance that he won't stick there.
Right.
And Stan said, and as we've tried to say, it's going to be fine either way, most likely. I mean, if he becomes Josh Hader, you're getting really good value out of the back of your bullpen there.
Josh Hader prior to this year.
Right, sure. Josh Hader's not been quite as good, but if he becomes that, you're getting a lot of value there. And if he becomes even a 3-star or maybe a 4, you're still getting value there. And, oftentimes the prospects don't really live up to the hype anyway. I mean, you go back and look at a list, go back and look at a MLB pipeline list from 2015 and tell me how many of those guys you know, because it's probably going to be less of them than you think.
Right.
So if this guy becomes anything at all that's impactful for the Orioles and it's gaining the value, that's a win right there. But, whether it's as a reliever, as a starter, we really can't conclusively say at this point. And he's going to get the chance to do both. They'll see where he really fits and what he's better at. And I think that's the exact approach they should be taking. I don't really think you should deviate from that approach at all.
The Orioles just announced their roster move. Recalled left-handed pitcher DL Hall from AAA Norfolk.
Okay.
He will wear number 49, and his first appearance will be his major league debut. They've optioned left-handed pitcher Nick Vespi to AAA Norfolk after yesterday's game. So that's a corresponding roster move to get DL Hall here. Nick Vespi going back to Norfolk, riding that shuttle all year. Poor guy.
Yeah, it's kind of rough for him.
But,
he's pitched well, though. He really has.
He has pitched well. He's had now 17 of his 21 appearances have been scoreless, even though he did give up that game-winning double to Eric Hosmer.
I was
going to
say I couldn't remember who that was.
It was
Eric Hosmer.
It was a slider on the outside corner that was left up in the zone, and Hosmer blasted it about as far as you can hit a baseball without it going out of the ballpark to dead center field.
That was the second inning of work, though, for him, correct? Was it the second?
No, he only pitched a third of an inning.
It was okay. I thought he was in the inning prior to that.
No,
but
it was.
I
believe it was Keegan Aiken. No. He came in and took over for Dean Kramer.
Okay,
he came in and took over. Who walked J.D. Martinez.
I think you're correct.
I am correct. He walked J.D. Martinez in the 6th inning with 2 outs. And the thing is, I'm watching the J.D. Martinez at bat, and he fell behind him, I think, 3-0. And I was like, all right, do not give him anything to hit. He gets back in the count. It's 3-2. Gets a foul ball. And I'm like, don't leave one up in the zone here.
Yeah.
And he ends up walking him, which was fine. I was totally fine with that. I would have liked to have seen Kramer get the opportunity to get Eric Hosmer out, especially when Eric Hosmer has pretty good reverse splits. Right?
He does.
He hits lefties very well. You bring in Nick Vespi, who's a little bit of a soft tosser.
Yeah.
You kind of know, like, look, you're getting about a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, and then you're getting a slider that he's probably going to try and paint the outside corner with. And Hosmer, to his credit, sat on one that kind of floated a little higher than Vespi would have liked. I mean, he was in the upper third of the strike zone on the outside corner. Yeah, and he smashed it.
I think we can all agree that we'd rather face Eric Hosmer than J.D. Martinez. I mean, I think that's pretty... Not that J.D. Martinez is what he was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, but he's still having a really good year, and he's a guy that's dangerous in any at-bat. Eric Hosmer, he was traded because he's not that guy anymore.
And never really...
But he came through.
He never really was that guy.
No,
He's been a good player on good teams at times in his career, but he's never been like a J.D. Martinez. See, and that's the thing that kind of irritates me a little bit about Brandon Hyde. And I think that there's a high probability he's manager of the year in the American League.
Especially if they make the playoffs, there's no doubt.
Even if they don't, if this team is above 500 at the end of the year, and they should be, I would imagine that they should be, right? I can't imagine a world in which Brandon Hyde isn't the manager of the year.
Right.
This team is expected to lose 100 to 110 games again. But he does these things. He falls in love with matchups. And he wants that lefty-lefty matchup. Well, yeah, that's all good and well, but Eric Hosmer actually has good numbers against left-handed pitching. He doesn't play Rougned Odor against left-handed pitching, even though he hits about 30 points higher against left-handed pitching. He doesn't play Taron Vavra against left-handed pitching, even though Taron Vavra has a better batting average in the minor leagues against left-handed pitching than Ramon Arias does here at the major league level. And he has a better average against left-handed pitching at the major league level and takes professional at-bats. He falls in love with these matchups too much. Kramer didn't walk J.D. Martinez because he was done. He walked J.D. Martinez because it's a 3-3 game and he doesn't want to give up a home run here, so he's gonna pitch carefully to this guy. I thought he deserved the opportunity, especially after the way he had settled it down, to go out and get Eric Hosmer out. But look, Nick Vespi, he is down to all this to say Nick Vespi is down to Norfolk again, and DL Hall will be making his major league debut this afternoon at 4:00 at Tropicana Field wearing number 49. Now I want to talk about Jorge Mateo.
Okay.
And as it relates to what the Orioles are going to do this offseason. Because Jorge Mateo, look, his first half wasn't great with the bat. But defensively, he's been fantastic all year. He still has trouble on the backhand side on routine ground balls. There are times when I'm like, why would you not get in front of that ball?
Yeah.
But the backhand sets you up better to be able to throw the ball quickly. I get that. But he's one of the best defensive shortstops in the game. He's a second in all of baseball in stolen bases, despite being caught 3 of the last 4 attempts that he's made out there. And the bat has been really, really playing for the last month plus. Jorge Mateo went 5 for 5 last night with 2 RBIs. On the year in the second half, he's slashing .333, .362, .621, .983 since the All-Star break. He is legitimately becoming one of the better shortstops in the American League, if not all of baseball at this point. And news came out yesterday, and I tweeted out, also breaking, the sky is blue and water is wet. That Carlos Correa plans to opt out after the season with the Twins. And people are like, oh, he's going to be an Oriole. And Jerry McCon tweets out that he's going to be an Oriole. I have no desire anymore to sign Carlos Correa. You're looking at a guy that's hitting about, 263 this year?
263. And they also have the same WAR, Mateo and Correa.
11 home runs, 37 RBIs. Jorge Mateo steals bases, plays great defense, and the bat's coming around. So I look at that, and I'm like, if it's Correa and Trey Turner, I'm going after Trey Turner well before I go for Carlos Correa.
It's not close either.
It's really not close. For the same reasons that I'd rather have Mateo at this point than Correa. And that's such a weird thing to say, right? And it's not that I would rather have Mateo. It's just that I don't understand spending what it's going to cost.
For the price.
Right. I don't understand what spending. And this isn't to say that the Orioles should be cheap.
Right.
But you're spending when you don't need to.
Right.
To go get a Carlos Correa.
I mean, is there any doubt that Carlos Correa is a better player than Mateo? Probably not. I mean, he's better, and he's a better hitter. You just have to look at the numbers here. But they have the same WAR, and the fact is that Carlos Correa is going to get paid probably $200+ million this year. Jorge Mateo is going to be making what? League minimum. It's probably going to. I don't believe he's arbitration eligible. So yeah, league minimum. So that's a savings of literally like $299 million.
And if Michael Elias has already come out recently and said Jorge Mateo is going to be part of this organization for a long time, they are seeing something in him that leads them to believe he can be their starting shortstop for the next 5 to 10 years.
100%. And do I think he's going to last 5 or 10 years and be as productive as he is now? Maybe not. Maybe not.
And
the track record doesn't really give me evidence of that.
And let's put a footnote on this, that he is being productive right now, but he hasn't been productive all season.
Exactly.
And his batting average has raised 38 points since July 9th when he was hitting 192. He's now hitting 230 after that 5 for 5 performance. So it took him a 5 for 5 performance just to get his batting average up to 230. But if he continues hitting the way he's been in the second half of the rest of the season, that's a guy who's probably batting 250 at the end of the year.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Which is, with that defense, and he'll probably end up with 15, maybe close to 20 home runs, because he's got, 12 right now?
I think 11, yeah.
No, I think he has 12.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure.
One way or the other, he'll get to 15, 20.
He'll get to 15 to 20, and he'll probably steal close to 40 bags, assuming he stops getting called at a 75% rate every week.
Yeah.
That's a guy who should be playing shortstop for you again next year.
Oh, 100%.
Which leads me to the things that the Orioles should probably be doing this offseason. If they say it's lift off from here, I get that you love the season Anthony Santander is having, and that Austin Hayes has 5-tool capabilities, right?
Yeah.
He's never going to steal 20 bags in a year, but he's not slow. He plays good defense. He's got a great arm. He's got a great bat. And he's got a great baseball acumen. Swings and pitches out of the zone a lot, which I don't like. A lot of times he gets himself out. And Cedric Mullins is Cedric Mullins. He's not the 30-30 guy that he was last year, but he'll probably be a 15-40 guy this year. And so I get that you like your outfield. I'm telling you, if I'm the Orioles and I'm going after a bat, it is Aaron Judge. I am putting all of my eggs in the Aaron Judge basket. He's the one guy you know that wall in left field isn't going to slow down, that you can get the bat from the right-hand side. B, you can put him in right field and have that cannon of an arm in right field, or you can DH him and to keep him healthy. Either way, you're fine there. Imagine Aaron Judge hitting in the middle of this order, surrounded by Adley Rutschman and Ryan Mountcastle and Gunnar Henderson. Like, just imagine a lineup that has those guys in it. For me, all of my eggs this offseason are in the Aaron Judge basket, and he has an opportunity to play against his former team 14 times.
Yeah.
To me, that's the move that makes the most sense. Will the Orioles do it? Probably not, because it's going to cost you. Rumor is he's seeking about $36 million a year. It's going to cost you a lot of money, and he's 29 years old now.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to pay him into his late 30s for a body that's already showed signs of breaking down.
Yeah.
But with these contracts, man, you're paying for the first 3 to 5 years and accepting whatever happens in the back end of that. Aaron Judge is my go-to as far as a bat. Your thoughts? We've talked about this before. I know we have.
As much as I'd love it, 2 things. Number 1, I highly doubt it will happen. And number 2, I think if they do try to make it happen, this is kind of what I said about Correa in this offseason. If they do try to make it happen, I just think they'll get outbid. It's just it's a thing where the Dodgers will be after him. The Padres will probably make a run. All the big teams.
And he is from California.
Yeah, and he is from California.
All this time, I thought he was born in a lab under Yankee Stadium. He is from California.
Well, they actually cloned Babe Ruth, and they just brought out Aaron Judge. But Mariners, I could see a team being in on him. The Texas Rangers love to spend money. Teams like this that love to add big bats that always, year after year do this kind of stuff, I could see, outbidding the Orioles for him. That's going to be the toughest thing for the Orioles, even if they do try, would just be to be the one paying him the most money, because oftentimes they won't be the team offering the most money. But if he wants to come here, then that's one thing.
Yeah, you say that they'll be outbid, but you also have to look at the fact that the Orioles reportedly, from Raul Ramos.
But then Carlos Correa said there was no offer, though.
Did he really?
He did, yeah.
Huh.
Correa said there was never any offer. That's what he said on the podcast like a couple weeks after he signed. So,
really? That there was no offer from the Orioles?
But maybe he doesn't have to be telling the truth about that either.
Maybe he's not telling. Maybe the agent was like, maybe the Orioles offered it to the agent, and the agent was like, I'm not taking this.
Well, it's Boris, correct?
Yeah. Maybe he's like, I'm not taking this to Carlos because this isn't an offer that he's going to accept. Why would I take this to him? It's just like when who was that guy that just got drafted in the NFL, and he I believe he's a corner, and they were is he a corner? No, he's a corner.
What year was this?
This year.
Okay.
And somebody asked him if he would do an interview for a Baltimore station, and he said, look, no offense, but I'm not dropping that far in the draft, so why would I do an interview in Baltimore?
I don't know.
So
who was.
I can imagine it being a similar thing where Boris looked at it and he's like, look, Carlos isn't going to sign that, and I don't want Carlos to sign that because there's no opt-outs, there's no opportunity to re-enter the free agent market, so I'm not taking it to him. And maybe Carlos didn't know about an offer. But we heard Kelvin Gutierrez earlier this year said that the Orioles went after Correa. We heard Raul Ramos say multiple times that the Orioles went after Correa. He also said that they had an extension package ready for Adley Rutschman, and that hasn't come to fruition. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I don't necessarily think that Carlos Correa is a guy that you need, but on top of that, if the rumors were true that Elias had a big deal ready for Correa, I can imagine him having a big deal ready for Judge because of all the things that I mentioned. That wall doesn't stop that dude, right? He's a difference maker. That you put like for me, if you go out and the only move you make next offseason is you sign Aaron Judge, that's all. I don't care. I don't care about anything else. That's fine. But
yeah, the injuries definitely concern me. I think that's the number one thing I'd be worried about. And maybe that'll bring his price down. I mean, maybe the other teams are saying
he's not going to bring his
He's spent a lot of time injured these past few years. And, it's definitely been a struggle for him to actually play. But this year he's been healthy and he's been the best player in baseball. So, I'd love it. I'd love for them to go after him, and I think they should try. But I think it's going to be tough.
I also think that the injuries have come a lot from he's been playing in the field. And he's a big dude. You keep him to just batting 4 times a game,
DH
5 days a week, and then have him play in the outfield twice a week or once a week. Maybe you keep Santander, Hayes, and Mullins, or you trade Santander and you bring up Colton Cowser or Kyle Stowers as an impact player. Whoever you have as your 3 outfielders, and then Judge is your DH. Yeah. And then when you want to DH Rutschman or you want to DH Mountcastle, you have that option. Yeah. To me, it just makes too much sense to at least not knock on that door.
I have so much confidence in Colton Cowser. I really do, and I think he's going to be one of the top players that comes out of this rebuild. I really think that. So I'm really putting a lot of the Orioles outfield hopes and plans around him. I think Colton Cowser is just going to be such a big piece. And, that wouldn't hold me back, though, from signing a guy like Aaron Judge. I mean, I'm not, again, I don't want to make any definitives out there. You never want to make blanket statements to say, oh, Colton Cowser is going to be a great player. He probably is going to be, but, there's nothing guaranteed about that. So you should never, just sink all your money into one player because you think another one is going to be something you don't know he is. So I think that's kind of the tough thing. And that's baseball. I mean, that's why it's a business. That's why it's tough. And that's why free agency every year is really interesting because you see, teams making really big bets on guys.
So now let's get back to Jorge Mateo and the comments that Eli said about how he's going to be part of this organization for a long time. And the defense he's playing, the bat coming around. And then you look at the Orioles prospects in Gunnar Henderson and Jordan Westberg and Joey Ortiz to a certain extent, and then Jackson Holliday, who is the number 1 overall pick in the draft this year, and they expect him to stay at shortstop. And now maybe 2-3 years from now, Mateo isn't your starting shortstop anymore, and it's time for Jackson Holliday. Is Mateo really going to play shortstop above Henderson, Westberg, and Holliday? And Westberg, if you don't trade him, and I think he's a high trade
I think
target.
He's maybe the number 1 guy in the system to be traded.
Right. Yeah. Gunner's going to play third base. If Gunner comes up, he's going to play third base. Right? I would imagine they think about putting Westberg at second if they don't trade him.
Yeah.
And then somebody's not going to be here. When we talk about this a lot, how somebody that Orioles fans love and have high hopes for won't be here.
Yeah.
Is Jorge Mateo really that kind of player that can start at shortstop over all those guys?
I think this version of him, yes. If he's this version since the All-Star break and what he's done defensively, what he's done, on the base paths, and what he's done at the plate, you combine all that and you look at that, I say yes. But I look at it and I go, is 2024 Jorge Mateo going to be the same player as he is now? I just don't know because so longevity is such a difficult thing in this league to be good for so many years. I mean that's why the average time a guy plays is so much lower than 10 years and the way it works out these guys just don't play that long. So I don't know. His longevity is a big up in the air question mark. And again, I don't want to make a definitive statement about what he is and what he's not. But Westburg, I definitely think is the number one candidate in this farm system to be traded. There's pitching out there to get, and I think that's where Mike Elias will go with it. And the fact that you do have Jackson Holliday in the mix now makes that even more probable. Jackson Holliday, I think they drafted him to play him. They're not going to move Jackson Holliday.
Right.
Dansby Swanson's the only number one overall pick that I can think of that got moved pretty early on, but
they're not going to trade Jackson.
They're not going to trade Jackson Holliday, and he's going to come up to play shortstop at some point. So maybe Mateo is that guy until Jackson Holliday's ready to go.
Maybe. Now I look at the Orioles and what they're trying to do. Again, 59 and 53. They're a half game up on Tampa Bay for the third wild card spot. They're not that far out of the first and second wild card spot. A game and a half behind Toronto for the second spot. 2 games behind the Mariners for the first spot.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a big number, but it was about 8 games worse not that long ago.
Yeah.
The Orioles are only 11 and a half games back of the Yankees.
Every week when we do this show, I look at the standings and I kind of go through them during the show. And every week I look at the last 10 games, and they're usually like 6-4, 7-3, 8-2. And that's just, and I keep thinking, next week it's going to be different than that. Next week they'll be 4-6 or something like that.
The Orioles,
right?
Yeah.
And they aren't, and that's the incredible part of it. And yeah, they're gaining ground. I mean, they could easily pass Toronto. Passing the Yankees is going to be a whole different story. That's going to be difficult.
Well, and they have the opportunities right there in front of them.
Yeah,
right, because they've got 3 in Tampa Bay this weekend. They already won the first game, and that's a team that you need to beat to pass, and they beat them last night to pass them. They get a win today, that's a series win, and that's back-to-back series.
Yep.
Let's pause on that for a second. How much garbage is it that they considered that one win by Boston a series win and a series sweep?
I don't really care, because one way or the other, it's a loss. It still
right.
goes in the L column.
I can't say that the Orioles have won back-to-back series if they win this game today, because technically...
True.
They didn't, based on the Elias Sports Bureau or whatever the hell.
You can consider whatever you want. I mean, you can say one thing and they can say another thing. It doesn't, frankly, it's all the same in the win and loss columns.
In series that are actually series and not just one game. If the Orioles win today, that's back-to-back series wins against Toronto and Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And actually, if you look at the previous series with Tampa Bay, they won 3 of 4. Against, I think the Orioles right now are a better team than Tampa Bay Rays.
Well, McClanahan, I would agree 100%. And Tampa Bay, they don't have their best player. Wander Franco's been out basically all year, so that's the toughest thing for them. And
Kiermaier's out.
Kiermaier, right? I mean, basically half of their team that's been. They remind me of the Ravens from last year. Just so much potential, so much promise, and just get injured along the way. And when you lose Wander Franco, it's like losing Lamar Jackson. You're losing everything, and I think that's been the toughest thing for them. So yeah, the Orioles are definitely a better team at the moment. And I believe last time they played McClanahan, I watched that game, and I think it was in the first inning, or they got 2 or 3 runs off him, and that's what they need to do again today.
Mullins led off the game with a home run.
He did, yeah.
Mountcastle hit one deep to right field that was what's that dude's name who just came up and just destroyed the Orioles in that series. Even though the Orioles, no, that was the series where they lost 2 of 3. He's a right fielder. What is that guy's name?
Oh, is it Lowe? It's Lowe.
No, not Lowe.
Not Lowe.
It's
okay.
not Josh Lowe. It's not Brandon Lau. It's Oh my gosh, this is gonna bother me. Sorry guys, I gotta look this up. We were like, he was batting .083 coming into the series, and then he went like 6 for 10. He had a game-winning home run against him. Now I gotta figure out, was he even in the lineup last night? Let me see.
I don't know. I believe it was. We're talking about Lowe, but I could be wrong.
Lucas Raley.
Oh, Raley. Okay.
Lucas Raley.
Mm-hmm.
He robbed Mountcastle of a home run, but then 2 other guys homered off of McClanahan. The Orioles, I don't think, won that game, but they hit 3. Santander went deep against him. So Santander,
I think he did,
Mullins, and then there was one other guy. I think it may have been Mateo.
Might have been Mateo.
I think it may have been Mateo, but
could have been Arias too. One of those two. I remember that specifically. But you got to come out and bring your A game against the guy like McClanahan. And right now, people have been saying, online or whatever, that this is the most important series the Orioles have had since really 2017 when they were in that playoff race in August. So this is really, really important that they come out there and bring their A game against McClanahan.
Well,
he's tough.
And they brought it last night.
They did.
They came out and they put a hurting on the Rays. That was honestly, it was probably the most complete game I've seen by the Orioles this year.
It is.
And then you got D.L. Hall coming up. Hey, no pressure, kid. Go up against one of the top 2 pitchers in the American League East in your major league debut. And by the way, we need to beat them to keep a playoff spot.
Right.
and I don't know who pitches tomorrow. We'll get to that when we get to that. But this is an important series. It's the most important series of the year until Monday when you go to Toronto.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that becomes the most important series of the year. Then you come home, you play Chicago on Thursday, and then you have a series against the Boston Red Sox, and then that becomes the most important series of the year. Not because of the fact that you're getting closer to the end of the season, and you're trying to keep pace, and you're trying to keep a playoff spot. So my point is, every game from here on out is the most important game of the year.
Right.
Right? And that's why all these losses are magnified. I was talking to my dad about this the other day. When I look at it, when the Orioles are playing well, every loss is magnified.
It is.
Unless they've got such a huge lead in the division or such a huge lead in the wild card that they can't blow it, every loss is magnified because now you're looking at even one team that's ahead of you or behind you won, you've lost ground. So all these games matter. I would love to see the Orioles finish the season 50-0. Not going to happen. But if they can finish the season 30-20, they're probably in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a problem about it. I think they're in the playoffs.
That's 89 wins. I would highly doubt that you missed the playoffs with 89 wins. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's going to be interesting to see. I'm really, and that brings me to, and I know that we're kind of running low on time here, but I mean, it's our show. We got nothing else going on. Right? Grayson Rodriguez. I was shocked. I was certain after the injury when they said that it was going to be a 2 to 3 month injury. I was certain he'd never pitch again for the Orioles this year. For this organization this year.
Yeah.
Never is a weird word to use there. Certain he wouldn't pitch the rest of this year. And now it's looking like he's probably going to pitch again. If you give me Grayson Rodriguez and DL Hall back to back in the same game, oh my God, dude, I'm like a pig in slop, right? Do you think that that's something that the Orioles could do? And it's got to be something that they have to at least be exploring internally.
Yeah, I mean, I think they definitely want Grayson to pitch again this year. The role and where he pitches is probably up in the air at this point. So I'm sure they're not really planning too far ahead right now, and they're kind of considering what their options are. I think if the Orioles start to pull away here and make it more and more clear that they're really a playoff contender and this is actually going to happen and they're going to get there, I think they're going to possibly try to let Grayson Rodriguez be here and do that and take a role that would be pretty substantial. But if they're looking, maybe one game in, ahead of the other teams, maybe they're one game ahead of Minnesota or whatever it is, and it's looking like it's still up in the air, like the way it is right now, where you're just hanging on the brink of that spot, then I think that they're going to play it a little more careful and make sure that Grayson's ready to go for next year because, this is the ace we're talking about. This is the guy that's going to lead you to a World Series based on the fact that he's going to be the best pitcher in this rotation, they hope. So for me, I think it's really depends on where you are. If you're if you're really pulling away, then I think you might want to give him that shot. If not, be careful with it and keep him down.
And then you look at the outfield and you look at Kyle Stowers and everybody. Where's Stowers? How is Brett Phillips on this team and Stowers isn't?
Yeah,
you're calling Stowers up to play every day, right?
I assume so. Maybe not though. The way they've treated him this year, I don't know.
Can't imagine that. I mean, that was a cup of coffee against Toronto, and they've not. I don't know. I really wasn't didn't. And there was a couple. They faced a couple of lefties in that series. They didn't want him to face off against. Kyle Stowers, if he's coming up to play.
It's just telling to me that when they traded Mancini, they had a spot open, and he could have easily taken that spot, and they instead filled it with Brett Phillips.
But he could have taken that spot, but then, and I guess this is before you knew what you had in Vavra, and you still may not know what you have in Vavra, but he puts together good at-bats every game.
Yeah, he
does.
He
puts together good professional bats every game. So now you get to the point where, okay, we could call up Kyle Stowers, but who are you taking out of the lineup? Are you taking out Hayes?
Yeah.
No. Are you taking out Mullins? No. Are you taking out Santander? No. And then Vavra's been your main DH, and he's getting on base at a very high clip, and he's recording a hit and a walk every single game, and he's been productive. You're probably not taking him out of the lineup. Where's the need for Kyle Stowers at this point? And I want him here as much as everybody else, but there's not
There's not really an open spot.
There's not
right.
a need for him.
Maybe Kyle Stowers, get him to play a little first base or something, or Santander, you can get him to do that,
Right.
and maybe open up a spot there. But it's tough. You look at the lineup, and there really isn't a spot. I'm not sure that Kyle Stowers is a better hitter than any of these guys at this point that we've mentioned. Like I don't think he's above Santander or Hayes. I don't really think he's above Mountcastle. I don't think he's above any of these guys hitting wise. I think he's going to be a good hitter, but he strikes out. Like you said, 4-1. That's a real problem, and maybe that's why he's still down right now, and it's
and I'll tell
August 13th.
Ryan Mountcastle has 102 strikeouts to 25 walks this year, so he strikes out 4-1.
Yeah,
Odor plays
pretty
every
bad.
day. Basically, he strikes out of the 4-1 clip.
Yeah.
Chirino strikes out of the 4-1 clip. Brett Phillips does also.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of the guys, and what's his name? Hayes. He walks a little bit more.
Yeah.
He walks a little bit more, but he strikes out a good bit too. So do you really want to add a guy that you don't really have a need for that's going to strike out a bunch, right?
Yeah.
Really, the need that I look at is you're just not getting enough productivity, in my opinion, out of third base.
100%.
And out of your infield in general. Now, what Mateo has done since the All-Star break has been very nice.
Yeah.
But when you look at how badly Mountcastle has been slumping since the beginning of July, and you look at your second baseman is hitting 203, and it's a high mark for the last 3 weeks. Your third baseman's hitting below 250, and your shortstop just got his batting average to a high since April of 230. Your biggest need is in the infield.
I think Odor. And I know you had some run-ins with some people this week about Odor on Twitter. I saw that.
It caused me to write like a 2,000-word article.
Right, I saw that too.
Did you read the article?
I read a little bit of it. I'll read the whole thing.
Some friend.
I'll read the whole thing for
friend.
you. I'll read the whole thing.
I introduced you to golf.
But
I was there.
You were when?
I was there to play golf with you when you first started out.
That's true. You saw some pretty rough swings.
Worst putting I've ever seen.
Oh,
in my
it
life.
was bad.
That's
it was
a story
bad.
For, we should do a golf podcast.
Yeah, we should. I think I'm kind of warming up to the idea of Gunnar Henderson. I was kind of against it last week, but the clock is ticking for Odor. It's got to be, because the guy has been, just terrible for the greater part of a couple months now. And you look at Gunnar Henderson, just continues to tear it up. Last week I was trying to make excuses of why Gunnar Henderson shouldn't be here. Now I'm running out of them. I don't really know if I can
ran
make
out of the excuse. Your excuse last week was that Mike Elias, that's not how he operates.
Mm-hmm. Sure,
and that was because when I made the points to you that if you're saying it's lift off from here and you're trying to put your best foot forward, why would you not have the best players here? Right? And Gunnar Henderson is a better player than what you currently have in your infield.
Yeah.
Even if he hits 230, he's going to get on base at a high clip.
I mean, right. Rougned Odor is probably batting 196 right now. 203. Not much better.
He had a 4-hit game. It raised his average to 203 for the first time since, I think, July 16th.
But he's got to see the clock ticking for him. And I think the writing's on the wall for the way he ends up. I'm not sure he ends the season with this team.
Look, you look at his last two big home runs for the Orioles.
Mm-hmm.
One was in July, the beginning of July against Texas, that tied the game after he made a boneheaded play in the previous half
That's
inning
true.
that made what should have been a solo home run, a 2-run home run to give the Rangers the lead to begin with.
Yeah.
So Odor's home run in that ninth inning that tied the game was all well and good, but it should have been a walk-off home run.
Correct.
You look at his home run, there was a game winner in the bottom of the 8th inning on Tuesday against Toronto. Well, if he doesn't get the ball stuck in his glove and then makes a terrible throw to home to not get the guy at the plate, if he doesn't get thrown out trying to go first to third on a base hit to left field that he had to hold up to see if the ball got caught, and he gets thrown out there, then you probably aren't in a position where you need him to hit that home run in the 8th inning to give you the win. Yeah. So, the home runs are nice, but the last two big home runs that he's hit have been results of his poor play being the reason that he needed to hit the home runs to begin with.
Very true, and it's upsetting, honestly, the fact that this is a guy who arguably is being paid and is here to hit home runs. That's Rougned Odor. That's what he does. Go look at his numbers. I mean, it's pretty clear that that's what he's here to do, and he's not doing it.
The Texas Rangers are paying him $12 million to play for the Baltimore Orioles this year.
They are, and I don't think the Orioles are going to complain about that, but they are going to complain about the fact that he has 11 home runs on the season, and that's not really what you're paying him for.
Yeah, this is a guy that if he for the at bats that he's had, he should have 20.
He should.
He's at 20 right now. He's got about 350 at bats. He should have 20 home runs.
Well, the year he hit 33 home runs, he hit 270.
Right.
He made enough contact that he could get to the power. And that's always the thing when you're talking about scouting prospects or whatever it is. You always say, okay, so the guy is 60 grade raw power, 70 grade raw power, but can he reach that power? Does he make enough contact to be able to reach that power? Because you're not going to hit the ball out of the ballpark if you don't hit the ball in the first place. So that's the problem for Rougned Odor.
And there is a common misnomer that I hate Rougned Odor. I think he's a great leader and a great clubhouse guy, and he's enthusiastic. And it's the same way I feel about Brett Phillips as far as the personality. You love it, and he's like a ringleader for this team chemistry. Sure. He hits below 200.
Right.
He gets on base below 250.
Yeah.
He, for every big hit he's had, is a 5 for 40 stretch in between, right? So you can look at Manny Machado in 2017. That dude was just hitting walk-off grand slams like it was no big deal.
No.
He was coming through in the clutch for you. And the Orioles, I think, went like 15-6 or 16-5 in August that year. The number, or maybe it was like 26-9. It was something ridiculous. They were well above 500, get themselves back into the playoff picture in August of 2017. And Manny Machado was the one who was driving the force behind that. He was coming up with big hit after big hit after big hit. The difference is Machado did it more consistently, and he also got hits in other games.
I was going to say, I mean, you can get as many clutch hits as you want, but you got to get hits at other points too. You got to have that first inning single, or
which he did last night. He had 4 hits last night. One of them was off of a position player.
People always make the joke, "Oh, he bought himself another month." Well, that's possible. That's possible. That
I don't think he's DFA'd anymore. I don't. I think he sticks around the entire season.
But you can't bring in Gunnar Henderson without him leave. Well, I guess you can get rid of Nevin, but that's the other option.
You get rid of Nevin. Yeah. You move Arias back to second base, and you put Odor rightfully where he belongs, which is a bench player.
Yeah.
And a pinch hitter in a game where you need a home run.
And a bench player who comes off the bench and hits clutch home runs.
And
that's perfect.
And that's the thing.
Right.
That's the thing. You still keep him. He still gets to cash a major league paycheck.
Right.
And be in a major league locker room and eat a major league spread and travel on a major league charter.
Yeah.
Right. And be around a major league team, and he still gets to inject that enthusiasm and energy into the team. I just felt like Matt Foley, Chris Foley, in a van. You know what I mean? But he doesn't have to play every day. He can still be on your roster. He can still be on your bench and be that guy who starts maybe twice a week and pinch hits all the other times.
He really is the prototypical bench player. Right. And I believe Brendan Hyde said it a few days ago. He said, we're going to see him play some third base in the future, which I think has us all saying, okay, that probably means he's headed for a bench role at some point. Maybe that means Gunnar Henderson's on the way up. Who knows? I mean, I'm sure Brandon Hyde has no idea one way or the other.
And I'll tell you, in that loss, well, first off, they asked Rougned Odor how he felt playing third base last year after playing second base his whole life. He said uncomfortable. So you put a guy who's admittedly uncomfortable and also can't hit at third base, right? And then I was at that game on Sunday when they lost 8-1 when he played third base, and the inning where Spencer Watkins had retired 13 straight. It's the fifth inning. He had retired 13 straight to that point. There's one out on top of the fifth, and it's a ground ball to third base. It goes for an infield single. And I'm watching Odor play this ball. And Odor, what he should have done was charge in and play the first big hop. But instead, he went back and he had to wait on a second big hop, and he had no chance to get the guy out at first base after that. He misplayed that because he's not a third baseman.
Correct.
And it was that misplay that then led to 4 runs, because instead of it now being 1 out, a runner on first, and Watkins is pitching from the stretch for the first time all day, it's 2 outs.
Right.
Nobody on base, and Watkins is now facing the third hitter in the order that maybe it's a different outcome.
Right.
It was Odor. Nobody talked about it. Nobody talked about it. Not a reporter, not a journalist, not the casual fan sitting in left field. I may have been the only person in that stadium that noticed how Odor played that ball and how, because when it happened, before the guy was even ruled safe, I watched the play happen. I said, Odor, what are you doing?
Right.
He played that ball so poorly. Yeah. And it cost him. Nobody talks about that.
Well, it's interesting, too. I just look at the on-base percentage. We can talk about batting average all we want. And Rougned Odor, I mean, you look at his numbers throughout his career. He's only hit over 270 1 year in his career.
He's hit 204 or worse 5 of the last 6 years.
Exactly. And let me tell you, I mean, you can talk about batting average all you want. That's one thing. But on-base percentage is something that the Orioles have looked at so much in this rebuild. Like every acquisition they've made, they get guys get on base. Look at Terran Vavra. Look at that acquisition, and look at the draft picks they've made. They're all on-base machines. That's the kind of guys they go for. I mean, Colton Cowser is another great example of it. This is the opposite of that guy. Rougned Odor, Brett Phillips, they have on-base percentages lower than 265. There's guys that hit 320 in this league. Their batting average is 320, and you're telling me that someone can be employed on a team that has an on-base percentage under 265. That's the problem here. I mean, that's the real reason. And we don't hate Rougned Odor. We don't hate Brett Phillips. We're just putting it out there that these guys get on base very little, and Rougned Odor's WAR is 0. He hasn't really provided anything to this team.
Think about that he is. I think they rated him as the 11th most clutch hitter in baseball this year.
Yeah.
6 of his 11 home runs have come in critical situations this year, and his WAR is still 0.
Right.
His WAR is still. That's how bad he's been.
Because he takes away on the field when he's playing outside of these clutch situations. He's taking away from the wins.
In that article that I wrote last Sunday that came out on Monday for Utah Street Report, I stated, and it's not true now because Odor got up over 200 last night, but it will be true probably in another couple of days. The Orioles are the only team in Major League Baseball to have 3 guys on their active roster with 100 or more plate appearances and a batting average below 200.
Yeah.
They're the only team in baseball. And it's not like they're the 52 and 110 Orioles. They're 59 and 53 and hold a wild card spot. If the season ended today, they'd be in the playoffs, and they are rostering 3 guys batting below 200 with more than 100 plate appearances on their roster. And the other thing is, all 3 of those guys actually have more than 150 plate appearances. Winning teams don't have a roster like that.
No.
They don't have and I get that, some of these guys that would be replacing him just aren't ready. No, Gunnar Henderson's ready.
I would agree at this point. He's probably ready.
Gunnar Henderson's ready. Okay? I don't care that he went a 2-week stretch without hitting. Odor's gone 4 months without hitting.
Correct, yeah.
Ramon Arias has gone basically the better part of the last 6 weeks without hitting.
Yeah.
Ryan Mountcastle hadn't hit a home run since July 3rd until this week.
Yeah.
Austin Hayes has 1 home run since July.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to tell me that it's okay for them, Major League, at this point, veterans of Major League Baseball, to have slumps. But it's not okay for a 21-year-old who's 9 months younger than anybody else at AAA to have a 2-week stretch where he maybe doesn't hit 300.
Well, it's cherry picking is what it is.
Right.
It's trying to pick out things that can make your argument look correct. Gunnar Henderson's ready. I think that's pretty clear. He's dominating AAA. He's dominating, not just surviving. He's dominating, and he dominated AA too, and he's dominated really every level he's been at for his entire career. So he's ready. That's one thing. Kyle Stowers probably ready. Probably ready. I would think
at a certain point you are who you are, and the game today, everybody strikes out. It's rare to find the guys that don't strike out a ton. So at this point, you are who you are. Kyle Stowers, ready. Gunnar Henderson, ready. Jordan Westberg, if he's not ready, he's damn close.
He's probably ready. And by ready, we don't mean, when we say that, we don't mean that they're at the peak of what they can
ready to be all-stars. It means that they're ready to be a productive player at the big league level.
Exactly. They're ready to go. They're not going to be, and we're not saying Kyle Stowers or Gunnar Henderson or any of these guys are going to come up here and hit 320 and have an on-base percentage of 420 or something like that. We're not saying that. But what we're saying is that they're clearly ready, and they're better than what the Orioles currently have on their Major League roster. And again, I'm still going to stick with the idea that Michael Elias is not going to bring up Gunnar Henderson. But getting guys like Rougned Odor off the roster, it's just going to happen sooner or later. Or if he's a bench player, I'm perfectly fine with that too, because I think there is a lot of value he can bring as a clutch hitter off the bench. It makes sense.
I do think it's telling that so many people around the Orioles fell for the fake tweet that Gunnar Henderson had been called up.
That's true.
I do think that that's telling.
It is.
And I also think it's telling that most of the Orioles reporters aren't writing it off that Gunnar Henderson plays for the Orioles this year.
Because how can you really? You look at the numbers, you can't write it off.
What I've come to realize is for the most part, these beat writers around the Orioles are correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, this year, everybody predicted about a 100-loss season. Yeah. Everybody was wrong. So I'm not going to hold that against them. Last year, I thought that the Orioles were better than they ended up being. I thought that they were better at the beginning of the year than they actually were. And the beat reporters were like, look, this is going to be a 100-plus loss team.
Yeah.
That's what, and they were absolutely correct. I have come to realize that they're correct about this team more often than not. And if they're not willing to write off Gunnar Henderson playing, I'm sticking with that because I think he helps you right now. If they called him up today, I think he helps you get to the postseason.
Well, I think the biggest, we've agreed on this, that the biggest remaining hole is at third base. He solves that. Simple as that.
Yeah.
He solves it.
I agree. All right. Another long show. We got to catch our final break. I want to remind you that today's show is brought to you by Simply the Bets and Weekend at Bookies. Sports betting has come to Maryland, and we're ready to help you win some money. Tune in for Simply the Bets every Tuesday morning at 11:40. FanDuel Sportsbook General Manager Leon Twyman and VSiN's Aaron Oster join the guys every week to give you all of the info you need and offer you a few winners. And then every other Thursday at 11:40, tune in for Weekend at Bookies as Andrew Stecca and Alloy Sports' Brad Kronthal help make you some money for the weekend. So come win some money with us on Simply the Bets every Tuesday and Weekend at Bookies every other Thursday, brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. You can listen to PressBoxOnline.com/radio, and you can watch at YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline. Final break. When we come back, take the rake on the batter round.
Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel, the ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
Summer is in full swing, and so is the summer seasonal menu at Glory Days Grill. Start with the opener, flash fried pork belly with their popular Korean No. 2 sauce, and try their South Carolina barbecue chicken, or backed by popular demand, the lobster roll with grilled corn. Also try the irresistible crab and lobster fries, or the very berry salad with chicken. And for dessert, the Cracker Jack sundae with a waffle, ice cream, and Cracker Jacks. This menu will be gone. Find out more and get your order in at glorydaysgrill.com. Glory Days Grill, great food, good sports.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Visit Howard County presents the 2022 Major League Quidditch Championship, a Harry Potter-inspired, real-life, full-contact, mixed-gender, 12-team Quidditch tournament happening at Troy Park in Elkridge, August 20th through the 22nd. For tickets and more information, go to visithowardcounty.com. Maryland, be open for it.
These are the final days for you to pick up the very special Salute to Coaches issue of Press Box, with John Harbaugh on the cover and 8 other area high school, college, and pro coaches recognized inside, with amazing stories told by the athletes whose lives they've impacted the most. You can find the Salute to Coaches issue for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always read every Press Box print issue at PressBoxOnline.com. And coming soon, our football preview issue, which features Ravens tight end Mark Andrews on the cover and profiles of players from Maryland, Navy, Towson, and Morgan State.
Swagger is a daily fantasy sports site created for sports fans who want some skin in the game and a real shot at winning. Forget plus-minus odds. Swagger uses points for a better way to understand probabilities. If you're tired of losing because of one bad pick, with Swagger, you don't need to be perfect to win. You just create a lineup of 4 to 10 simple player props and score points for the ones you get right. So you can be half right and all right with Swagger. Swagger offers the most player props and biggest payouts of any DFS test site as much as 50 times your buy-in. Plus, you can play all the major pro sports, including your favorite local teams. If you're ready to play, visit playwithswagger.com/pressbox to sign up, and Swagger will give you $10 free to try them out. Plus, they'll match your first deposit 100% up to $100. It's free money to play with Swagger. Swagger, daily fantasy for all fankind. Playwithswagger.com/pressbox.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
All right, we are back here on the Batter on to close things out with Take the Rake. Zach just informed me that he
I don't know if we have to talk about
that
it.
he has to pee so bad. I'm like,
look.
Why didn't you go during the break? It was like a 3.5 to 4 minute break. The bathroom is literally 10 feet away. I think Zach forgot that we aren't at the Meadow Mill building anymore.
No, that's
where
not
the
what
bathroom was literally a half mile from.
You know what it was?
Studio.
I just wanted to hear the old GCR music, and I knew I had to be here for that. So
You're the producer. So.
Yeah.
Like this music plays regardless. You would have been here.
It does. I guess that's true. I don't know.
How long does it take you to pee, man?
Well, apparently a long time.
It's like a 30 to 45 second experience for me.
Maybe
at
for
most, you. At most, Zach needs to go get his prostate checked.
Clearly,
He takes.
I gotta get it.
He takes 5-minute pisses.
Apparently,
are you allowed to say that on the radio? Piss?
I don't know.
I just said it twice.
You
just said it twice.
I think Glenn's. I think Glenn's has said it a few times in his show. Anyway,
right. Take to Rake. I was running away with this thing until last night. I took Ryan Mountcastle.
Yeah.
He was 6 for 18 going into last night. And then he went 0 for 5.
Mm-hmm.
You had Adley Rutschman, who was 4 for 16.
Okay.
And then he went 1 for 3 with a home run last night. So Ryan Mountcastle on the week. 6 for 23, 2 doubles, a home run, 3 RBIs, 3 walks, which is surprising for a guy who's only walked 25 times all year. That's a 261, 346, 478, 824 slash line. Adley Rutschman, 5 for 19, a home run, 2 RBIs, both stats came last night, 7 walks, 263, 461, 421, 882. So...
what was Ryan's OPS again?
824.
882 versus 820. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And basically, the difference there is that Rutschman walked 7 times, which isn't raking, but it's having nice plate appearances.
Correct, yeah.
Right? So here's what I look at. You took Adley Rutschman because he's the best player on the team, and he's been hot. He's hitting 346 over his last 20 games. Right? Mm-hmm. I took Ryan Mountcastle because I saw glimpses the week before of him breaking out. And then he goes out and he has his best week in I don't know how long. 2 doubles, a home run, 3 RBIs, 3 walks. When you look at the direction that Rutschman's been headed, and you look at the direction that Mountcastle's been headed, for Mountcastle to put up that week, I think gives him the edge. That's my opinion on the matter.
Okay.
Adley Rutschman statistically probably had his worst week in about 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. But still, good week. For what? 420 on base percentage, 460, something like that.
460 on base percentage, 420 percentage. So you look at Ryan Mountcastle was more productive with his hits and had more extra base hits, had the higher slugging percentage. Mountcastle had the higher on base percentage and therefore had the higher OPS because of all those walks.
Right.
So what do? It's pretty damn even. We could call it a tie.
We could. We haven't done that for a while. I don't know. I don't know.
We haven't done that for a while. They had such similar weeks. I don't know. And it's not just
what if we just continue this in the next show? You know, we just do that. We just keep these guys and have them go for another week in the next show.
That's we've never thought to do that before.
Let's just do that. I think that's the best.
Where I keep Mountcastle, you keep Adley, and we see how next week plays out, and that's the tiebreaker.
Yeah, I agree.
It sucks that you get Adley 2 weeks in a row, though.
I mean, what if we do it as whoever performs better today wins the tiebreaker? We get like the Saturday game.
I don't like that because they're going up against Shane McClanahan.
They are, But
isn't Shane McClanahan a lefty?
yeah, I think so.
Let me
Think
look
so.
that up real
I
quick.
should probably know
that. I think I should definitely. We both should definitely know that. Let me look that up real quick. Shane McClanahan, Atlanta. Yeah, he's a lefty.
Yeah.
Which means Rutschman will be batting from the right side. Okay.
I'm fine with that. Look, I'm fine with that. I'll make that deal.
Okay, so we'll do the rest of the series.
Okay.
We'll do the rest of this series to determine the winner from last week.
And that means both of those guys are off limits for us now. We can't just flip-flop here and say, I take Mountcastle, you take Adams.
Right.
So both those guys off limits.
Both those guys are off limits for this week because we're going to wait to see what they do in the last 2 games of this series. Rutschman probably doesn't play tomorrow.
Whatever. I'm fine with it. Let's just go with it.
All right, if Rutschman doesn't play tomorrow, it's just today. If Rutschman plays tomorrow, it's the whole weekend. But now we got to pick 2 players. Each got to pick a player starting today through next Friday. And I get to pick first because I won last week.
Correct.
I'm taking Austin Hayes.
Okay.
I saw some swings last night that looked very good, including a really hard hit single to right field. So I'm taking Austin Hayes because I think he's about to break out.
Give me the shortstop. Jorge Mateo is my pick for this week.
Hayes for me. Mateo for you.
We got a great comment. I just want to read, by the way. Great comment. It says, I would take Adley for Take the Rake every week. He can tackle Christian McCaffrey, can kick the football like Justin Tucker, play catcher like Buster Posey, switch hit like Eddie Murray, swim like Michael Phelps, and host The Price is Right like Bob Barker. What can't he do? It's a great comment.
He can't be picked every week.
He can't be picked there.
You can't pick the same player 2
that
weeks
is true. So he can't do that. But other than that, Adley Rutschman, yeah, great player.
All right, so I'm writing in the notes that this was a tie. So we're giving Mountcastle and Adley
a little tiebreaker
the rest of the weekend.
Yeah.
All right, the rest of
why have we never thought to do this before?
I have no idea.
Yeah, lack of intelligence on both our ends.
Taking, let's see, Paul takes Hayes. Why am I doing this? Paul takes Hayes.
Interesting end of the show right here.
And Zach takes Mateo.
By the way, Orioles just released the starting lineup for today. It does not include Cedric Mullins again, so that's interesting. Every time they go up against a lefty, last time he was in the 8-hole. Today he is on the bench. So McKenna leading off again today. Adley Rutschman in the 4-hole today instead of his normal 2 spot.
Hey, whatever floats your boat, I guess. Yeah, McKenna, Santander, Mountcastle, Rutschman, Urias, Hayes, Mateo, Odor, Chirinos. Rutschman is DHing, which means he's catching tomorrow.
You're probably right, yeah. You're probably right.
They're not going to have him get a day off. They're not going to give him 2 days in a row.
I thought they'd have him catch DL Hall, though. I thought that'd be a...
Yeah, that's stupid.
I knew you wouldn't like that. I
didn't even think about that. Why are you... All right. Whatever. You have the best one of the best pitch framing catchers in all of baseball, who's clearly been the difference maker on this team, right? We've seen the strikes that this guy steals. We see how he impacts a game. You're bringing up a guy whose biggest flaw is that he doesn't consistently throw strikes. And you're having Robinson Chirinos, who is a terrible pitch framer, catch.
It's questionable at best. Yeah,
this is
not
so
great.
Freaking stupid. This is so stupid. These are the things that make me wonder if Brandon Hyde is destined to manage the next winner. And look, the Orioles could be a winner this year, right? How? This is mind blowing to me that you wouldn't have Rutschman catching.
I can't say I agree with it.
And
no.
it's not like this was a 7:00 game and then a 1:00 game.
Yeah.
This is a 7:00 game and a 4:00 game.
Okay.
And Rutschman's 24 years old.
Well, he's caught the last 3 days, so maybe that's why they wanted to. But I don't know. I don't necessarily agree. I'm not trying to back up the Orioles here because I do not agree with that decision.
Right, but they didn't play on Wednesday. Oh, wait. So, yeah, they didn't play on Wednesday, so he's caught the last 2 games.
Right, but then I think he called on Tuesday as well.
Yeah,
so I
but
think,
there was a day off in between, so that doesn't matter. That point is moot.
Guess so. I'm not arguing.
It's moo. It's like a cow's opinion. It's moo.
Thanks, Joe. I always say you're like Joey Tribbiani. There's a reference.
I just don't get. And this is my final thought.
I'm going to use that one as mine too. I think that's a great idea.
My final thought for today's show is that Brandon Hyde, for as good as this team has played, and for as good as he is at keeping a cohesive unit, keeping the team chemistry at a very high level, he does some things that are just so questionable to me, and that's putting it lightly.
Like batting McKenna leadoff. Yeah,
I don't mind. McKenna got a base hit the last time
he did,
and he's not having a bad year. And he's hitting left-handers pretty well.
He is actually.
Okay,
yeah.
But starting Odor against right-handers, even though he's better against, and sitting him against left-handers, even though he's better against left-handers, although Odor is playing today. Bringing in a lefty to face Eric Hosmer, who mashes left-handed hitters. Having Adley sit for a 4 o'clock game on Saturday after catching on Friday, when you're bringing up one of your top pitching prospects whose main issue is
command.
Yeah. This move doesn't make sense to me.
No.
I don't understand the thought process. I understand the thought process. I don't agree with it. Okay, I get where his mind is. I don't agree with it. And look, he's a manager in Major League Baseball. I am not. But it's moves like that that make you not a manager in Major League Baseball for very long. And
it's not a smart one. No.
I can't imagine running out that lineup card and saying, D.L. Hall's here to pitch. Let me start Robinson Chirinos.
Right.
And yeah, he's talked about how great Robinson Chirinos has been with the pitching staff this year. Guy can't pitch for him.
No.
And we don't have robot umps yet.
No.
And you have a starter who has command issues.
Yeah.
Start Chirinos tomorrow. Like, you can start him tomorrow.
Or even DH him today and let Adley catch. I mean, there's a
you're never DHing Robinson.
If you want to get him in the lineup, maybe you will. I mean,
the only reason you ever want to get him in the lineup is to give Adley a day off.
Right? Yeah. Technically, yes.
You're never DHing him, and Taron Vavra's not in the lineup, which is whatever. We know that he doesn't even give Vavra a shot. Against lefties. He's 1 for 4 against lefties at the big league level, and he hasn't gotten a shot since. I don't agree with not starting Rutschman. And to me, that's as much a head scratcher as anything Hyde has done this year. Anyway, your thoughts?
No, I'm with you. I mean, that's kind of where I want to be with my final thought too. I talked about bullpen usage last week about just making sure Cionel Perez isn't being used too much, and I think for me, it's going to be kind of the same thing as you're talking about, just making good decisions that are logically based. Making sure you're not falling too much into the trap of this guy is a reverse splits guy, or the matchup moves you were talking about. Not getting too obsessed with those matchup moves, and maybe starting to think about things a little more logically in some areas. And I think that'll end up giving you a few more wins by the end of the year. But I do think Brandon Hyde is doing a fantastic job, and clearly the chemistry that he is producing in the clubhouse is second to none this year. So questionable decisions, no doubt, and bullpen usage I hope continues to stay where it is, because I think he's been doing better with that lately, and I think it's improved since last time I talked about it. But hopefully, they don't continue to overuse guys. I'd like to see a little more Keegan Aiken. I feel like he hasn't pitched that well this year, but just to save other guys, I think it's important.
Well, he's been pitching a lot more recently.
Yeah.
I think they've decided that 1 inning Keegan Aiken is probably better
at
this point than the multi-inning Keegan Aiken. I would like to see a little less Brian Baker in high leverage.
I would also like to see a little less Brian Baker.
When Brian Baker comes in a game that's either already decided or the Orioles are comfortably ahead or uncomfortably behind, Baker's very good.
Yeah.
But when Baker comes in these situations, like where they just tied the game against the Reds, and then he proceeded to walk the first 2 batters that he faced, and then they ended up losing the game because of that.
Yeah.
And then he comes in on Tuesday night. The Orioles have a lead, and he proceeds to walk the first guy he faces and give up a 2-run homer to the second guy, or 3-run homer to the second guy he faces. He's coming into these high leverage situations and he's failing.
Yeah.
I would rather not see Brian Baker pitch unless it's earlier in the game and not a high leverage situation, until he proves that he can get that ERA down below 4 and keep it there. And if you're a reliever and your ERA is above 3.2, I don't really have a use for you. unless you're Keegan Aiken, you're a multi-inning reliever. But anyway, I digress. Ravens won their 21st consecutive preseason game.
They did
on Thursday, 23-10 over the Titans. Huntley was fine, 16 of 18, 109 yards, a touchdown. This tight end Isaiah Likely looks
fourth
really
round pick
good.
from Coastal Carolina looks really good.
He and Andrews, I can see them being nightmares for defenses this year. And then the wide receiver Bridges.
Yeah, Shamar Bridges. Looks really good.
He doesn't look very fast.
No,
but he's tall.
Yeah.
And he wins jump balls.
Well, Anquan Bolden, they haven't had a guy as big as Anquan Bolden who can go up and get the ball over a corner.
Anquan Bolden wasn't big as far as height-wise, but he was a muscular dude. He was strong.
Right.
He was really strong.
And he's really the last guy I felt like they've had that can just go up there and get any ball. He can really pull the ball out of the air, jump over a corner, moss a guy for lack of a better term. And they haven't had a guy like that since him, and I feel like they've been looking for it. I think Shamar Bridges might be that guy.
Bridges and Isaiah Likely were those dudes.
Yeah.
The one catch that Likely made down the left hash was incredible.
Great throw by Huntley there too. Great throw.
The first catch he had in the red zone right before the Mike Davis touchdown. He caught the ball and then made like 4 dudes miss.
Yeah.
It was
Lamar-esque, the way he juked those guys out and got himself into space and was able to get the first down.
He said that all in all he felt like he had a good game, but there's some blocking schemes that he really needs to improve upon. And look, you can get him into that lineup and not have to worry too much about the blocking in certain situations.
As a wide receiver, right there.
But I think he's so much more dangerous with a wide receiver type of games skill set. Playing from the tight end position.
You might be right. He'll get more coverage from linebackers and safeties as opposed to corners. So that's not a bad observation.
Exactly. Look, otherwise, Mike Davis looked fine. I would have. Tyler Beatty looked decent, especially more so in the passing game.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a player for the.
That's going to be his role, I think, and that's great. That's a great role.
I thought Justice Hill looked explosive coming off that Achilles injury.
Yeah.
Right. It was the Achilles for Hill, right?
It was the Achilles. And if you remember the Steelers game where it was the COVID game where Justice Hill was one of the only available running backs for the Ravens. He was excellent in that game. I don't feel like people talk about it enough. He was so electric, and he was making guys miss and holding on to the football. He looked really good back then. I think he looked the same way a few nights ago. So I love seeing that.
And so look, J.K. Dobbins is back to practice. Now look, he missed practice yesterday. I think he wasn't there today. I think that they're kind of trying to monitor his innings,
ease him in. Yeah,
you know what I mean. But they have a lot of running backs and not a lot of spots. Look, I mean, I think Beatty's going to make the team. Gus Edwards isn't going to be ready for week 1, and I could realistically see it being, Dobbins. Maybe Dobbins isn't ready for week 1. Maybe he's just not quite ready. And then you could have Davis, Corey Clement, Beatty, and Justice Hill as the active running
I think
backs.
you got to go with Justice Hill. You have to. The way he looked.
Right. He should look like that, being a third-round pick in his fourth year in the NFL now.
Yeah, it's
third or fourth year. Tyler Beatty, I think, is a guy who sticks on the roster on the game day roster all year. 1,600 yards in the SEC last year. He had, and he catches the ball out of the backfield really well. He's fast. He's shifty. Scores a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah,
I think he had 22 touchdowns last year.
Do you remember
22.
Wendell Smallwood with the Eagles for a while? The running back.
Yes,
I believe he might have won the Super Bowl with them. That's my comparison to Beatty. They look very similar. Wendell Smallwood was really good out of the backfield, could catch the ball.
Darren Sproles type of thing?
Darren Sproles, yeah, maybe not as good as Darren Sproles, but that that kind of guy who gets out of the backfield and is often in a passing situation, but can make guys miss and a little bit of a smaller body type. That's kind of what I thought when I saw Tyler Beatty. I was like, wow. And Smallwood was a really, he's not really. I think he's still around. He's not doing much anymore, but that kind of guy is useful, and they haven't had that kind of guy for a while. And there was a running back too. It was Danny Woodhead, who was with the Ravens in I think 2019 or 2018. 2018. Another guy who kind of had that similar role.
Hurt his hamstring the first game.
Right, and the Ravens haven't really had one of those pass first running backs since him. So I think that'd be a good move to have him on the roster.
And now let's get to Lamar Jackson didn't play.
Yeah.
He's not going to play next Sunday against the Cardinals. And maybe he does because it's Murray and Jackson. I doubt it, though. Do you think Lamar Jackson plays at all this preseason?
I hope not. I don't think so.
He got one series last year in the third and final game. And J.K. It's not his fault, but J.K. Dobbins got hurt on that series. And if you look at giving your star players one series in the final game and then in the final preseason game and they get hurt on that series, you don't look good. And you can't have that happen 2 years in a row. I'd be very surprised to see Lamar Jackson play at all this preseason. So, wow. 12:42. Longest we've ever gone.
I was going to say, longest show.
I think it's the latest we've ever gone on the show, but we're 15 minutes closer to our homes than we were at the
We are.
No, 20 minutes probably closer than we were before. So it's all right. Great show. Special thanks to Stan the Fan Charles for his weekly segment and to Rich Dubroff from BaltimoreBaseball.com for taking some time out of his busy weekend schedule to talk with us today. Had a lot of fun talking about DL Hall's debut. Head scratcher of all head scratchers, aside from the Brett Phillips acquisition, is Hyde not catching Rutschman for DL Hall's debut. Now watch him go out and throw 7 innings of 2-run ball.
That'd be funny.
Whatever.
Be great.
Look, things are happening here in Baltimore. DL Hall might be the first of just a few prospects that are going to come up and make a difference for the Orioles. They have a wild card spot, 59 and 53. First time in the history of us doing this show that the Orioles are in playoff contention.
It's true.
Exciting times here in Baltimore. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week. See ya!